Chapter 607. Their first impression of Han Fei was that he was weak. Of course, Yulin thought so too. However, Han Fei simply stabbed a saber into the ground and said, "It's an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul. Whoever defeats me can take it." The laughter came to an abrupt end. A group of nearly 100 people, everyone's movement stiffened. The guys who were laughing a moment ago all widened their eyes when they saw the ultra-quality spiritual saber. Han Fei tilted his head slightly, and the long saber floated in midair. Phantoms of mess, swallowing worms appeared on the saber and stabbed into the center of the field. Yulin was stunned for a moment. She suddenly pulled Han Fei. "Are you crazy? You're gambling with an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul?" Gu Daliang and Wu Xiaoxiao both looked at Han Fei. Seeing that Han Fei was an advanced dangling fisher and had an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul, they thought that a rich guy was here. A shadow flashed before everybody's eyes, and a man appeared. He looked at Han Fei thoughtfully and said, "I'm Leng Hui, the hunter of the 37th Squad. Are you the new captain?" Han Fei smiled casually. "If my guess is correct, I am." Leng Hui, however, immediately looked at Yulin. Yulin frowned and nodded reluctantly. Seeing that Yulin nodded, Leng Hui and the others didn't say anything, but they all thought, how strong can an advanced dangling fisher be? Han Fei simply ignored Leng Hui and the others. In such a place, it was impossible for him to blend in before he proved his strength. They might not have despised him if he wasn't a captain, but if he was a captain, he had to show that he was qualified to be a captain. Han Fei stood in the middle of the field and said with a faint smile on his face, "Anyone can come. If you defeat me, this saber will be his." Liang Dong shouted immediately, "I'll do it, boy. You may be from a rich family, but I have to show you what a battlefield is today." Han Fei extended his hand and said, "Oh, really? All right, let me understand." Wu Xiaoxiao pulled Yulin hand and asked telepathically, "Can he do it?" Yulin replied, "We exchanged a few moves when we picked him up today. I'm not worried that he will lose to Liang Dong, but that Guowen will." Han Fei grinned. "Come on." As Han Fei waved at Liang Dong, a man suddenly walked over and said, "Liang Dong, don't be careless. He is the new captain of the 37th team." Liang Dong smiled contemptuously, then his face turned serious. He could look down on Han Fei, but he would never go easy on him. This was what the battlefield had taught him. Spirit extinguishing vine. Bang, bang, bang. In the void around Liang Dong, a large number of green and red vines with sharp saw-teeth appeared out of thin air. In an instant, there were thousands of them. At the same time, vines were intertwining as if they were trying to weave a giant whip like Luo Xiaobai did. The attacks of ordinary manipulators were nothing more than this. Han Fei stood in the center of the vines, not moving at all. When a massive amount of vines was about to wrap him up, a blade light extended out from the vines. Immediately afterward, the vines wrapped around Han Fei shattered. Spiritual energy flashed on Han Fei's body, and with a bang, all the vines exploded. At this point, Han Fei was holding a twig in one hand and looking at Liang Dong with a smile. At this time, the onlookers are no longer in the mood to laugh at Han Fei. Manipulators seemed to be an auxiliary profession, but their combat power was not weak at all. Not everything could shatter the vines. Judging from the strength of the vines just now, it would take a full-strength blow from a peak-level dangling fisher at least to break them. But what do they see just now? How did the vines turn into pieces? Liang Dong's face changed greatly, and he slapped the giant vines out. Han Fei raised his hand, waved the twig, and a blade light swept past. Poochie, the thick vines snapped like they were made of paper. And Han Fei's blade light didn't seem to be damaged much. Not good. Immediately, a junior hanging fisher took out a large shield and put it in front of Liang Dong. Clang! The blade light was shattered, and surging spiritual energy exploded. The armorist's high-quality spiritual shield was cut by Han Fei's blade light, leaving a deep crack. For a moment, the audience fell silent. Yulin eyes glowed. She had underestimated Han Fei. She had thought that Han Fei's strength was similar to hers. After all, Han Fei was also a spirit gatherer. She didn't expect that his knife technique would be so terrifying. Wu Xiaoxiao looked at Yulingyun. Is the new captain really an advanced, dangling fisher? Gu Daliang rubbed his arm and took a breath. Not bad, not bad. It's true that all captains are extraordinary. Lung Hui didn't speak, but his eyes were fixed on Han Fei, as if he were considering how much strength Han Fei used. However, when he saw the twig in Han Fei's hand, his eyelids couldn't help but cramp. Han Fei was too arrogant. Pa, I told you not to look at your level. Strength depends on the person. In the crowd, a young man walked out. Han Fei sensed the sharp sword intent on him at the first moment. The young man looked at Han Fei with a smile. I'm Guo, captain of the 31st Squad. May I know your name, Your Excellency? Han Fei smiled casually. Han Fei. Guo nodded. Captain Han, please don't blame me. It's a habit for the 8th Battalion to practice with each other. Han Fei smiled. That's fine. However, I stand by what I said. Whoever wins will get that saber. I mean everyone here, every single one of you. Hiss. Isn't he a bit too arrogant? Although he's a heavenly talent. Is this really appropriate? Captain Guo is an intermediate hanging fisher. Interesting. I'm starting to like this guy. Wu Xiaoxiao couldn't help but clap her hands. The new captain is so domineering. I like him. Yu Lingyun snorted. It doesn't matter even if you like him. He already has a girlfriend. Wu Xiaoxiao. Guowen paused and slightly frowned. Originally, he wanted to keep the peace, but Han Fei repeated this sentence, which clearly showed that he was trying to establish his authority. However, was it reasonable for an advanced dangling fisher to establish dominance over a bunch of hanging fishers? Guowen was slightly unhappy. Just consider a practice. I don't want your ultra-quality spiritual saber. How about we each launch an attack? Han Fei grinned. That's great. Guowen said to the people next to him, let's disperse. Many people retreated in response. The attack of an intermediate hanging fisher was quite powerful. Naturally, Han Fei also sensed the sharp sword intent from Guowen. Gu Daliang mumbled. Lingyun, is it really okay for Guowen to fight in person? Yu Lingyun was lost for words. There's nothing I can do. Our new captain seems rather domineering. This battle was initiated by him. Lung Hui said casually he might not necessarily lose. Guowen looked at Han Fei. Are you still going to use the branch in your hand? Han Fei smiled casually. I'm used to it. Besides, this is a practice. I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't have any inferior weapons except for ultra-quality spiritual weapons, so I can only use the branch. Pooh! The group of people immediately rolled their eyes. Are you here to show off your wealth? Someone was lost for words. It seems that he has multiple ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Someone guessed. Could he be the nephew of a master of refining? It's possible. Guo Wen's face darkened. He looked at the branch in Han Fei's hand. Why didn't he go first? Han Fei was briefly stunned. Then he grinned and said, Okay, weapons are blind. Are you ready? Humph. Guo Wen's sword intent was getting stronger and stronger, and the smile on Han Fei's face gradually faded. After all, it was unrealistic for an intermediate dangling fisher to turn over a branch easily. However, it was just a branch anyway. He could always replace it if it was broken. The spiritual energy and energy in Han Fei's body were condensed on the branch in the blink of an eye. He waved the branch, and the upper half of it had been crushed by the attack, except for the small part that was still in Han Fei's hand. A huge arc of a curved saber cut through the air, heading straight for Guowen. The moment the machete appeared, the latter's face had changed. He roared, "Thousand-star stab!" The soil under Guowen's feet was shattered, and the long sword in his hand stabbed out glittering sparks in the air. The horrifying sword light pierced straight at Han Fei's machete, as if it were tearing the void apart. Clink! Crack! 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 To everybody's disbelief, the high-quality spiritual weapon in Guo Wen's hand was breaking inch by inch. The collision of the sword chi and the machete raised a raging wind that everybody couldn't help but turn their heads away. Guowen suddenly leaned to one side. The moment he dodged to the side, a large tree not far behind him, with a loud bang, broke apart. Everybody was silent. At this moment, Nobody dared to underestimate Han Fei anymore. They all looked at Han Fei as if he were a monster. Although Guowen wasn't injured, his long sword was broken, and he dodged in the end. It was enough to prove that he had lost. Han Fei, on the other hand, pulled out the machete from the ground with a smile and said, "I'm new here and need to learn more about the situation. So, I won't bother you any longer. Tonight, I will be holding a barbecue banquet, and I hope that everyone will come." Then, Han Fei turned around and looked at Yu Lingyun with a casual smile. "Do you want to find a place to talk?" Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 608. Han Fei left side by side with Yu Lingyun and the others. He said in a low voice, "Was I too high profile just now?" Yu Lingyun, Wu Xiaoxiao, was overjoyed. "That's right. If we can't subdue these people, they will find fault with us every day. Lung Hui, mainly because I have nothing better to do." Han Fei was lost for words. "You're so bored that you just stay on the island? Why don't you go treasure hunting?" Gu Daliang sighed helplessly. How can treasure hunting be so simple? Although the sea is just over there. In fact, if we go down there, we won't be able to get it back in half an hour. Han Fei glanced at Gu Daliang and couldn't help but smile. "You really can't. All you have is a shield. Among all the armorists I've seen, you're the poorest one." Gu Daliang, Wu Xiaoxiao, was a petite girl. She might have been born to look like a lowly. Earlier, when she was cheering for Gu Daliang, Wu Xiaoxiao had screamed for a long time, but all she managed to do was utter a bunch of sweet noises that made one speechless. In terms of looks, Wu Xiaoxiao was much worse than Xia Xiaochan, Luo Xiaobai, and He Xiaoyu. He didn't feel anything at all. At this moment, Wu Xiaoxiao simply grabbed Han Fei's shoulder. "New captain, is your family a refiner? We're not surprised that you have a supreme-grade spirit artifact. But there are only a few ultra-grade spiritual weapons with sealed spirits in them in the entire 8th Battalion. Han Fei hurriedly withdrew his arm. Hey, it's inappropriate for men and women to touch each other. I'm going to resign if you keep this up." "Resign?" Everybody understood what he meant, but Yu Lingyun said, "Captain, you've already come and accepted the mission. How can you resign?" While they were whispering, Han Fei returned to their dormitory camp. When he stood in one of the rooms, he was lost for words. 5 people sleeping together? Wu Xiaoxiao, yeah, for the sake of team harmony, we'll all sleep together. Han Fei's eyes widened. Is she really that unrestrained? Cough, cough. Gloomily, Yu Lingyun said solemnly, "Don't listen to Xiaoxiao's nonsense. There are 5 rooms inside." Han Fei couldn't help but say, "What's the use of a separate room? What can't you sense once you sense it?" Yu Lingyun seemed to have a little understanding of Han Fei's temperament. This person seemed to be a bit mischievous and playful. Yu Lingyun said coldly, "We're all warriors. We won't easily perceive other people. This is respect for comrades." Gu Daliang pushed the door open, and the first thing that greeted him was a little fishy, as well as the salty smell of the sea breeze. Han Fei frowned. "Do we have to live here?" Lung Hui said, "You don't have to." Han Fei looked back at the woods and said, "Okay, you stay here for a while. I'll build a tree house later." Gu Daliang frowned slightly. "Captain, I don't think it's a good influence, right?" Han Fei sneered. "What's wrong with that? I'm used to living in a tree house. I'm not used to sleeping on the ground." When they entered the door, Yu Lingyun suddenly roared, "Gather!" Under Yu Lingyun's command, both the cold Lung Hui and the jumpy Wu Xiaoxiao stood in a row. All of them stood straight with intense, killing intent bursting out of their bodies. While Han Fei was stunned, Yu Lingyun said, "Soul Warrior Yu Lingyun, Junior Hanging Fisher. His spiritual beasts are fiery fish, and his contractual spiritual beasts are bloodthorn tuna and ghost spiritual fish. He's good at sword techniques. Manipulator Wu Xiaoxiao, Junior Hanging Fisher. His spiritual plant is 3-leaf cold phoenix grass. His contractual spiritual beasts are gold nematode and purple sand eel. He's good extreme cold combat techniques. Armorist Gu Daliang, Junior Hanging Fisher. His spiritual beast is blue tide turtle. His contractual spiritual beasts are ice crystal shell and arrow heart shell. He's good at defense and spear techniques. Hunter Lung Hui, Junior Hanging Fisher. His spiritual beast is dark-thorn fish. His contractual spiritual beasts are mad bloodworm and wolf crab. He's good at sudden outbursts. His combat techniques are ghost stab. The four of them looked to Han Fei at the same time, and Han Fei was lost for words. Do they have to be so formal? Han Fei couldn't help but put away the smile on his face. Han Fei, a soul warrior and a spirit gatherer. He's an advanced, dangling fisher. His spiritual beast is spirit-swallowing fish. His contractual spiritual beasts are mantis shrimp and red-ring octopus. Han Fei didn't want Little Gold to be exposed, although some people must know it. Little Fatty had even shown up in the Wind Thunder Town. If someone really wanted to get to the bottom of it, it wouldn't be a secret. The reason why Han Fei didn't mention Little Gold was that he was afraid that Little Gold's flying characteristics would scare them. Spirit-swallowing fish. Yuling Yun and the others looked at each other in bewilderment. Spirit-swallowing fish have no combat power. Immediately, Yuling Yun secretly complimented him. No wonder Han Fei's physique was so strong. It turned out that his spiritual beast had no combat power. He couldn't just rely on his contractual spiritual beasts, could he? Then, the scene of a young man cultivating his physique appeared in Yuling Yun's mind. In her imagination, Han Fei definitely couldn't be as relaxed as he looked at this moment. Han Fei said, "Why don't you be so serious first? I just want to ask you 2 questions. Yuling Yun nodded. Go ahead. Han Fei nodded slightly. First, why are your weapons so lousy? When I was in the level 3 fishery, every hanging fisher had several ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Why don't you have any?" Yuling Yun and the others couldn't help but look bitter. Wu Xiaoxiao pursed her lips and said, "We have no choice. The ultra-quality spiritual weapons can't be saved. Once a super intense battle breaks out, the spiritual weapons will be easily broken. So, it's better to use high-quality spiritual weapons. If they are broken, we can replace them." Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Break ultra-quality spiritual weapons? Isn't that something that only peak-level hanging fishers can do?" Yuling Yun shook her head. "If you keep fighting high-intensity battles, the ultra-quality spiritual weapons will be greatly worn out. Although ultra-quality spiritual weapons sound nice, in fact, the strength of the materials themselves is limited. After a long time, they will be easily broken. Only ultra-quality spiritual weapons with sealed spirits are not easily damaged because they have been enchanted," Gu Daliang added. "More importantly, we can't afford them either." Yuling Yun and the others looked at Gu Daliang. "Why are you so straightforward?" Han Fei finally understood. "I can't afford it." Han Fei understood. It wasn't that Han Fei hadn't used ultra-quality spiritual weapons before, except for the fact that peak-level hanging fishers could easily break ultra-quality spiritual weapons when they attacked with all their strength. He didn't think that ordinary junior hanging fishers could break ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Knowing this, Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Are you saving points or high-quality pearls now?" Yuling Yun bit the bullet and said, "Both. We have more than 38,000 points in total." Han Fei asked, "So many points? What level do you belong to?" Yuling Yun nodded. "If you get 50,000 points individually, you could be promoted to a 3-star rank." Han Fei was speechless. "So, the points of the 4 of you combined are not enough to be promoted to a captain?" Yuling Yun and the others couldn't help but blush. That's exactly it. Han Fei couldn't help but glance at the 3-star rank on his waist. It turned out that being in the top 100 of the 36 towns meant that he had earned 50,000 points in the unknown place. Han Fei nodded. "Second question. Tell me about the skeleton shore and the creatures in the sea." At night, it seemed that a few newcomers had joined these teams. However, none of them were from the Blue Sea town, and Han Fei didn't know any of them. At this moment, Han Fei was building a cabin on a big tree 5 kilometers away from Yuling Yun's camp. Gu Daliang was helping him. Gu Daliang grinned, revealing his yellow teeth. "Captain, is your family very rich?" Han Fei said with a smile, "No, I earned all my money by myself." Gu Daliang was confused. "Then why do you have an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul?" Han Fei blinked his eyes and said, My teacher gave it to me. Gu Daliang was stunned. It's indeed because of his background. We don't have a teacher to give us anything. Wu Xiaoxiao was controlling the vines to fasten Han Fei's cabin to the tree. Hearing that Han Fei had a teacher, Wu Xiaoxiao couldn't help but say, "My teacher can't afford that. Even my teacher doesn't have an ultra-quality spiritual weapon." Han Fei asked, "Which town are you from?" Wu Xiaoxiao replied, "The cloud-soaring town." "You must have met people from the cloud-soaring town in the match, right?" "The cloud-soaring town?" Han Fei couldn't help but ask in surprise. "Didn't you say that few people came from the cloud-soaring town?" Wu Xiaoxiao said helplessly, "Not many people come from the cloud-soaring town. However, the Scattered Stars Island is too big. We only meet people from the same town during our vacation. More than half of them have perished in the past few years." After chatting for a while, Han Fei closed the last window and said, "Okay, let's go treat the guests." Wu Xiaoxiao said in a low voice, "Are we really going to treat them? I don't think Sister Ling Yun and the others can catch much food. It won't be enough." Han Fei smiled. "That's fine. I brought food." "You brought food?" It wasn't until a moment later that Wu Xiaoxiao realized what Han Fei meant. Yu Ling Yun and Lung Hui went fishing for a long time, but they only caught some creatures within a kilometer of the seaside, including clams and crabs. However, Han Fei took out a whole pile of food from his swallowing seashell. Everyone was extremely speechless. "You ran all the way from town to the unknown place with just a bunch of food?" Yu Ling Yun asked. "More than 30 yellow-blooded sea cucumbers?" "Captain, aren't you being too wasteful? There aren't many yellow-blooded sea cucumbers in the unknown place, so they're more expensive than in the level 3 fishery. They can be sold for 100 high-quality pearls each. You've taken out the equivalent of 5,000 high-quality pearls in one go." Han Fei put on a smile and said, "You can do whatever you want when you're rich." Yu Ling Yun was rather speechless about the new captain. She didn't know why, but she always felt that this new captain was full of disdain for this place. The author said, "Happy New Year, everyone. Everything is good in the new year, and your dreams come true." End of this chapter. Chapter 609. Han Fei treated them to a meal as soon as he arrived. In this unknown place, he was indeed quite unconventional. However, rich people could do whatever they wanted. As the saying went, you have to take advantage of others. This truth was universal in every world. When Han Fei showed his fancy cooking skills, everyone was stunned. Immediately, it attracted the attention of all the people present. Except for those who were on duty, no one was spared. At this time, Han Fei was holding a strawberry in his hand, sitting on a tree trunk. Yu Ling Yun jumped up and landed next to him. "A meal can't be exchanged for much kindness." Han Fei said lightly, "I know. It's just that I'm a maverick. It's enough to leave a good impression. When are we going to the skeleton shore?" Yu Ling Yun thought for a moment. "Anytime. The senior scouts of the 8th Battalion are only responsible for daily reconnaissance. Normally, many people would go to the coastal waters to catch some ordinary creatures to sell. Although the sea is dangerous, it's better on the shore. So, there are still a lot of people on the coast." Han Fei asked, "Tell me about the points." Yu Ling Yun took out a booklet and said, "I'm here to deliver this to you. You'll know after you read it." After a while, Han Fei looked a little solemn. The role of the star rank and the difficulty of promotion seemed to be greater than he thought. Good deployment. From no stars to the highest 12 stars, it represented 13 different levels. And now, the only person with 12 stars on the Scattered Stars Island was Xue Shenqi, the highest commander of the Scattered Stars Island. Those without stars would receive 200 high-quality pearls and 200 high-quality points every month. They were all not hanging fishers and seemed to only be able to do chores and ordinary coastal defense work. One star would receive 500 high-quality pearls and 500 high-quality points every month. Basically, they were all junior hanging fishers. 2 stars would receive 1,000 high-quality pearls and 1,000 high-quality points every month. It was no different from 1 star. Usually, as long as one's strength slowly improved, one could reach it. 1 and 2 stars were the main members of the coastline defense of the Scattered Stars Island. 3 stars would receive 2,000 high-quality pearls and 2,000 high-quality points every month. Most of them were in places such as the Reconnaissance Group, the Garrison Group, the Pioneer Group, the Island Patrol Team, and the Fishers Union. Usually, they would serve as some small cadres. Relatively speaking, they were much stronger. Generally, they had to be intermediate dangling fishers. Once he had 4 stars, he would receive 5,000 high-quality pearls and 5,000 points every month, which was a significant increase. Except for special reasons, it basically meant that his strength had reached the level of an advanced hanging fisher or other identities equivalent to this realm, such as a refiner or an alchemist. When one had 4 stars, it was said that they would receive the honor of the Guardian of the Sea, which would give them a discount when buying things. 5 stars, 10,000 high-quality pearls, and 10,000 high-quality credit points every month. At this level, people could choose their own path. For example, if they hunted more than 100 sea demons, they would be given the title of Killer of 100. On the Scattered Stars Island, they would be regarded as blood guards who walked out of the sea of blood. The 100 sea demons here were not ordinary inferior fishmen, but 100 highly intelligent and high-level sea demons. Although the level 40 inferior fishmen were also sirens, killing 1,000 of them might not necessarily give them the title of 100 Slayer. Under normal circumstances, a 6-star rank would not only double the benefits, but also be awarded the title of Slaughterer. It was a solo mission. The Scattered Stars Island wouldn't care what you did, only what you gained. This meant that he would be free after he had 6 stars. If he had 7 stars and killed more than 1,000 sea demons, he would be qualified to be promoted to a centurion. That was a real fame earned through killing. Han Fei couldn't help but gasp. When he saw the requirements for the promotion, he felt that his head was about to explode. From 3 stars to 4 stars, the basic requirement was 300,000 points and winning 5 defensive battles. From 4 stars to 5 stars, the basic requirement was 1 million points and the title of Killer of 100. From 5 stars to 6 stars, the basic requirement was 5 million points, the title of Killer of 100, and killing more than 10 level, 49 sea demons. From 6 stars to 7 stars, the basic requirement was 10 million points, the title of Killer of 1,000, and killing more than 10 half-mermaid heavenly talents. Han Fei felt that his blood was freezing. Was he too arrogant? That was too King far away. Yulin just told them that the points they earned were a few points at a time. How long would it take for it to reach 1 million? The next day, Han Fei couldn't wait to get up and go to the skeleton shore immediately. However, as soon as he went out, he saw Yulin and the others walking over. Han Fei was confused. Aren't you still in the vacation period? I can go by myself. Gu Daliang nodded. It's fine if you're in the vacation period. Let's go to the coast to hunt some regular creatures. Wu Xiaoxiao added, money is a treasure trove. The Scattered Stars Island doesn't have many things, but it's easy to pick up random creatures on the coastline. After those sea creatures brutalized each other, some of them were pushed ashore by the waves. When the tide ebbs, we'll take advantage of them. Seeing that they were all ready, Han Fei didn't say anything else. As it happened, he wanted to see how strong his new teammates were too. For now, those people might be strong, but their combat ability would be greatly reduced because of their poor equipment. He was now stuck in the realm of an advanced dangling fisher and needed to stay there for a while. In that case, it was his duty as a captain to understand the strength of his teammates and help them improve their strength. Very soon, they came to the edge of the cliff. As long as they jumped off the cliff, they would reach the skeleton shore. The skeleton shore was made of sand, gravel, and mudflats. Because there were so many clams in the sea, the beach was full of crushed shells as far as the eye could see. There was no land or beach on the Sky Island, so there was no such view. In Han Fei's vision, there were also some bizarre-shaped rocks in the seawater far away, as if they were stuck into the sea. Yulin said, those are the remains of big ships from a long time ago, just like the fossils of the big ships we saw on the way yesterday. However, they are larger, and they're still in the sea. Sometimes we board them and pick some sea creatures. Lung Hui said casually, at this moment, the tide hasn't ebbed yet. After the tide ebbs, we can take a look at the ships that are closer. However, there aren't many good things on those ships. After all, most of the creatures attached to them are shellfish. Han Fei looked at the beach and saw about 5 teams searching on the beach. He couldn't help but ask, "Are they the people who scavenged the sea?" Gu Daliang nodded. "Yes, let's go. We might be able to pick up some good things if the tide ebbs." Han Fei followed Yu Lingyun and the others to the part of the skeleton shore that protruded into the sea. After running for about 10 kilometers, he heard Yu Lingyun say, "Be careful of the ground. Further ahead is the place where the tide has just ebbed. In the mud and sand, there are likely to be sand-skinned shrimps, flathead big-eyed crabs, filamentous sea spiders, and kingworms. If you're not careful, you might even be killed." Han Fei nodded. In fact, his senses had already sunk into the slowly receding seawater. In the water, Han Fei saw strange red and yellow poisonous spiders with claws all over their bodies, yellow shrimp-like shells that looked like fans, and an arched black worm whose body was made up of 13 segments of black carapace. Under the beach, Han Fei sensed a lot of such creatures too. They seemed to be the coastal creatures that Yu Lingyun mentioned just now. Before Han Fei was about to start, he saw that Yu Lingyun and the others had already taken action. The 4 of them took out their fishing rods almost at the same time. Yu Lingyun's fishing hook darted out like a streak of light and caught a big crab half a meter long under the beach. Name: Flathead Big-Eyed Crab. Introduction: this is a scavenging crab that likes to hide under reefs and sand. When prey passes by, it will suddenly hunt. Level 38, quality, regular, spiritual energy greater than 596 points. Effect: long-term consumption, can help restore physical strength. Collectible: none. Absorbable. After the flathead big-eyed crab was caught, Han Fei finally understood why it was named that way. Its shell was almost flat, and its 2 big eyes, like 2 big glass beads, couldn't stand up at all and could only be stuck on the shell. Swoosh! A streak of sword aura pierced through the middle of the flathead large-eyed crab's eyes and killed it in one attack. Yu Lingyun stored the flathead big-eyed crab into her sea, swallowing seashell unconcernedly, and glanced at Han Fei. Don't underestimate those regular creatures. Every year, a lot of newcomers are killed by them. Even junior hanging fishers sometimes fall victim to them. On the other side, Wu Xiaoxiao was much more efficient. The 3-leaf frigid wind grass moved under the sand. Wherever Wu Xiaoxiao passed, several large ice blocks would be raised, and all the creatures inside were frozen. Leng Hui had already entered stealth mode. Every time he appeared, a spot of sand would be dug up. Gu Daliang used the shield as a skateboard. He stood on it and moved forward all the way. Holding 2 big hooks in his hands, he plunged them into the sand now and then. Then, one strange creature after another was hooked out by him. Seeing that they were so familiar with this, Han Fei knew that they had done this many times. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "You're fishing so crazily. Are these things valuable?" Wu Xiaoxiao replied, "Not at all. 1 point for one. Anyway, there are too many of these things, and many people on the island like them." Han Fei was lost for words. A level 38 creature is only worth 1 point? Leng Hui replied, "They're regular quality." Han Fei was speechless. Even if they were of regular quality, they were still level 38 creatures. That was too cheap. No, he had to catch dozens of each kind and store them in Forge the Universe. Han Fei's perception was relatively far away. After he quickly hooked dozens of creatures and threw them into Forge the Universe, he suddenly found that a black weird thing was wriggling at the ebb tide. Immediately, Han Fei waved his fishing pole and caught the thing. In the next moment, the black thing was hooked back by Han Fei. Wu Xiaoxiao exclaimed, "Hey, a king worm, 5 points for one." In Han Fei's eyes, name: King Worm. Introduction: this is a scavenging creature that lives on carrion. It has a hard shell and enormous strength. When it's in danger, it will roll into a ball and attack the enemy. Its gallbladder can be used as medicine. Level 39, quality, regular, spiritual energy greater than 612 points. Effect: inedible, collectible, insect gallbladder. Absorbable, the king worm shrunk itself into a ball in midair and flew straight at Han Fei. Han Fei frowned. Why would he want it if it couldn't be eaten? It was a good chance to test its strength. Bam! Han Fei punched out and smashed the king insect into pieces in the next moment. Wu Xiaoxiao shouted, "Captain, you've lost 5 points. Get out of the way. Let me see if the gallbladder is damaged." Wu Xiaoxiao searched for a while and said regretfully, "Ah, it's damaged." Han Fei, Gudaliang slid to Han Fei. "Captain, should we go easy on it?" Han Fei was lost for words. "If you earn points one by one, how long will it take you to earn them?" Wu Xiaoxiao said matter-of-factly, "Many a little makes a mickle." Gu Daliang nodded. "If we're lucky, we could get a high-quality spiritual weapon in a day." Han Fei rolled his eyes. "How long will it take to get an ultra-quality spiritual weapon?" Gu Daliang paused for a moment. "At this rate, we should be able to get one in 10 days. However, if we want an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul, we'll have to fish for at least 20 days. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Is an ultra-quality spiritual weapon so much more expensive than a high-quality one? Yu Lingyun walked close and said, "That's why everybody prefers high-quality spiritual weapons to ultra-quality ones. Because points are not just for exchanging for items. They have many other uses." Han Fei suddenly paused. "How much is a basalt conch?" "A basalt conch?" Everybody was briefly stunned, but Gu Daliang said, "The shell of a basalt conch is hard and can be made into shields. It's only 100 points." Han Fei waved his hand and threw out his hook. Wu Xiaoxiao exclaimed, "Huh? You're so good at 1,000-mile fishing." Yu Lingyun said, "It's far away." However, in the next moment, a big conch flew close. Gu Daliang's eyes widened. "It's a basalt conch. Leave it to me." Han Fei frowned. He had caught it randomly. There were actually a lot of creatures in the tide. Why didn't they go down? Except for the filamentous sea spiders that had feet everywhere, there didn't seem to be any particular danger. It seemed that the skeleton shore didn't live up to its name. The author said, "I've already got 2,300 votes. I really didn't expect that I would be defeated on the first day." Okay, let's add chapters to the daily updates. For example, if we don't meet the conditions for adding chapters before 5 o'clock, we'll add chapters the next day. If we meet the conditions before 5 o'clock, we'll add chapters on the same day. Today, I don't have any experience, so I'll put up a 4,000-word chapter first. Let's not count as 2 chapters, just 1 chapter. What matters is that you're happy. Thank you for your monthly votes. Also, if you keep asking for monthly votes, I'll vomit blood again into this chapter. Chapter 610. Han Fei was not interested in level 39 basalt conch at all. So what if it was 100 points? If you want to be promoted to a captain, you need 50,000 points, and you need to catch 500 basalt conches. As for himself, he didn't seem to be promoted yet. After all, he hadn't experienced any battle intent, and this was only his first day on the job. Even if he caught 500 basalt conches, he still had to deduct his other expenses. For example, they could buy equipment, spiritual fruits, and other miscellaneous items. In this way, he had to kill at least 1,000 basalt conches to have a chance to be promoted to team leader. But in fact, how can there be 1,000 basalt conches for you to fight? If 1,000 basalt conches really appeared, it would definitely be a fish tide and not a small fish tide. Han Fei asked Gu Daliang to put away the basalt conch. They were about to disperse and continue to scavenge, but Han Fei stopped them. Han Fei asked, "Hey, is the skeleton shore really that dangerous?" Yu Lingyun replied, "Of course not. The reason why this sea area is called the Skeleton Coast is not because the problem lies on the coast, but in the sea after the tide has completely ebbed, especially in the seawater near the coast." Han Fei asked, "What is it?" Wu Xiaoxiao said, "The skeleton shore is full of scavengers. In the depths, there are red coral hermit crabs, blue armored shrimp, red ape shrimp, tide-calling crabs, and big sword water fleas. Once you enter the sea, these creatures will swarm you in thousands." Leng Hui said, "Sometimes, even if they don't enter the water, they will swarm to the skeleton shore to lay eggs. At that time, it wouldn't be as simple as tens of thousands of them. It's a black mass, both on the shore and underwater. Hearing this, Han Fei understood. Therefore, it was still a matter of quantity. It didn't mean that there were many terrifying creatures on the skeleton shore. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Let me ask you, what's the most valuable creature with the most points?" Yun replied, "Not exactly. The armor of the blue-patterned armored shrimp, the pincers of the tide calling crab, and the greatsword of the water flea are all worth more than 100 points. However, there was a creature in the sea of skeletons called the Three Changes Golden Ginseng. The energy contained in its body was probably 10 times that of the yellow-blooded sea cucumber. One would cost between 8,000 and 10,000 points. However, this item is extremely rare and rarely appears." Han Fei couldn't help but take a deep breath. Its energy was dozens of times higher than that of the yellow-blooded sea cucumber. "Good stuff." Han Fei grinned and said, Yun, you said yesterday that it takes 300,000 credits to exchange for a 4-star rank, right?" Yun nodded. "Yes. Although it's easier to obtain more points in the deeper parts of the sea, it's also more dangerous. We can't go there. After all, we are only hanging fishers." Han Fei had understood. Although Yun and the others were junior hanging fishers, their 1,000-mile fishing technique was not good enough. For example, when he discovered the basalt conch, they did not discover it. Their perception range was also much smaller than his. To put it bluntly, he was weak. A junior hanging fisher wasn't that strong. It seemed that becoming an intermediate hanging fisher was a major breakthrough, and his strength had improved a lot. At this moment, Han Fei was not going to scavenge the sea with them. It was not that he wanted to be high profile, but these people's behavior was too low-key. There was a vast ocean in front of them, but these people were picking things up by the shore. Was this appropriate? Han Fei said, "Can you beep?" Beep. Han Fei was about to ask if they could go to the sea, when he suddenly heard a loud howl. Yun suddenly changed her expression. "Not good. The 31st Reconnaissance Squad found something in the sea and is sending a warning to the watchtower. Retreat and prepare for defense." Han Fei was confused. Wait a minute. Did the 31st Squad run into the sea? Lung Hui said, "Our reconnaissance mission is in the sea. We're just here to scavenge the sea. There's no need to go to the sea." Han Fei immediately made up his mind. As long as he could go to the sea, his perception was great. As long as he sensed something good, he could jump down and grab it. What was there to be afraid of? He thought that the so-called advanced reconnaissance mission was to scavenge the sea like this. As for the howl, Han Fei didn't take it seriously at all. The 8th Battalion had been guarding here for a long time. From 100 squads to 66, it could be seen that this kind of thing must happen frequently. It might be a little dangerous, but shouldn't be too serious. As the horn of the watchtower sounded, red smoke rose in the sky. Han Fei knew that it was calling for help. Han Fei had already followed Yun to the shore. At this moment, they were all ready. Yun said, "Captain, we are advanced scouts in peacetime, but we are warriors in times of war. We also need to fight on the front line. Let's get used to each other first." In the sky above the sea, a fishing boat was coming back quickly. The man on it was Guo, who lost the fight yesterday. At this moment, he was roaring, "A tide of tide, calling crabs. A tide of tide, calling crabs is coming. Everybody, prepare for battle." Beep, beep. The seawater was surging, and the waves were obviously bigger. A big bulge was rising from the depths of the seawater. As the red smoke rose, fishing boats had already arrived from all directions. At first, there were only 1 or 2. Then there were dozens and then hundreds. In the end, almost 500 fishing boats arrived. Among them, each fishing boat was a squad. This time alone, more than 500 squads had come. Together with the 8th Battalion that was stationed on the skeleton shore, there were 600 squads and more than 3,000 people in total. Han Fei couldn't help but be amazed at the efficiency. From the red smoke to the arrival of the reinforcements, it took no more than 100 seconds. It was not hard to imagine how efficient the battle was. Staring at the sea, Han Fei asked, "Are we going to stay here?" Lung Hui nodded. "We'll charge with the Guardians later." Han Fei asked. What's the Guardians? Yun explained. The Guardians are warriors who fight on the front line all year round. For example, those who failed in the competition of the 36 towns and have 1 star will all be sent to the Guardians without exception. Only when they get 2 stars will they be qualified to be scouts. Han Fei frowned. So, there are actually a lot of advanced and peak-level dangling fishers in the Guardians? Yun looked at Han Fei thoughtfully. Basically, there are few advanced dangling fishers. Half of them are peak-level dangling fishers, and most of them are junior hanging fishers. However, most of them have just advanced. Han Fei seemed to understand the meaning of the stars. Every level actually had its corresponding tempering. For example, those with 1 star and those without stars were frontline warriors who had to fight. This was also a challenge that could make people grow up quickly. Then, after being promoted, he became a scout. Although they didn't have to be prepared to fight on the front line at any time, scouting was definitely not an easy task. It could be regarded as a challenge with higher requirements. Once you become a squad leader, it would mean that you were already outstanding and qualified to lead a team of 5. Han Fei's starting point was relatively high. He was a captain the moment he arrived. Although he was a newly appointed captain, it was also a responsibility to protect his teammates when the battle started. It was also something that he should do. People fell from the sky like dumplings. Everyone was already holding weapons, but they hadn't fused with their spiritual beasts yet. A few of them looked strong at first glance. They also had 3 stars or even 4 stars. At this moment, they were calling everyone to line up in a line like bead chains across the beach. Behind Han Fei, all the scout squads had arrived. Han Fei saw a bald young man standing at the forefront of everyone. The 4 stars on his waist indicated his identity. Yun said, "This is the captain of our 8th battalion. His name is Zhong Han, a powerful armorist. He just became a peak-level hanging fisher 3 months ago." At this moment, Zhong Han roared, "All captains, step out." All of a sudden, all the 66 captains stepped out, including Han Fei. This was the enemy's home field, and Han Fei had to follow the rules. Zhong Han glanced at Han Fei and then glanced at the others. "All captains, take your squads and support the soldiers of the Guardian Regiment. Whenever the pressure is greatest, go to the side where it is. Remember, attack flexibly and retreat as you fight." Yes, everybody roared at the same time. Zhong Han didn't look at Han Fei anymore and simply ordered the soldiers to disperse. 10 kilometers away, a large number of black shadows were crawling to the shore like a tide, numbering in the tens of thousands. Han Fei couldn't help but worry. Could the 3,000 people resist so many crabs? However, when the tide-calling crabs were still 5 kilometers away from the coastline, the Guardians in the front had all fused with their spiritual beasts and possessed their contractual spiritual beasts. Everybody roared and charged forward. By logic, Han Fei should have admired those people's bravery and fearlessness. But for some reason, it was exactly because of their bravery that Han Fei realized that there was something on the Scattered Stars Island. If the entire coastline of the Scattered Stars Island was like the skeleton shore, were the creatures really charging to the shore to lay eggs? Of course not. It couldn't have been something as insignificant as laying eggs. He had to explain it to Luo Xiaobai when he found her later. What exactly caused the war between the sea and the land? While he was thinking, Han Fei had already charged out with Yun and the others. Yun said, "Captain, this is your first time in a sea battle. You need to be careful. This is not a competition. Even though the tide-calling crabs are not strong, you don't know where the next attack will come from once you charge in." Han Fei nodded. "Got it, but let's not take action yet. Leng Hui, you're fast and approach the front line. If you can't catch them, come back and inform me. Don't go to battle without permission." Okay, Han Fei was used to Luo Xiaobai's orders, and he actually felt quite good when he became someone else's captain. The error-free chapter of Fishing God will continue to be updated on Green Bean. There are no advertisements on this website. Please collect and recommend Green Bean. If you like Fishing God, please collect. Fishing God Green Bean updates the fastest. Chapter 611. Tide-calling crabs were very easy to recognize because their features were too obvious. Other crabs all had two pincers, but even though the tide-calling crab had two pincers, it only had one pincer that was even larger than its body. As for the other one, it was almost negligible. However, the pincer was the most dangerous part of the tide-calling crab. The pincers possessed terrifying strength and were capable of snapping middle-grade spirit weapons. If a hanging fisher was caught by the pincers of a tide-calling crab, he would usually be cut into two pieces. In addition to its strong attack power, the pincers were extremely hard. The essence of the tide-calling crab was all in the giant pincer. In Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name: tide-calling crab. Introduction: a scavenging creature. The tide-calling crab could only produce one pincer in its entire life, which was as hard as iron and as powerful as a mountain. There were sharp serrations on the pincers, which could easily crush ordinary hanging fishers. Level 41. Quality: normal, contains spiritual energy greater than 1,285 points. Effect: long-term consumption can strengthen the body. Collectible: tide-calling pincer. Absorbable: the battle had already begun. There were tide-calling crabs everywhere with their pincers raised. Crab shells, crab roe, and other sticky things were scattered on the ground. Anyone who saw it would frown. Han Fei felt that he had underestimated these junior hanging fishers. Whether it was their attacks or their methods, they seemed to be more brilliant than he had imagined. Even those peak-level dangling fishers, when cooperating with each other, could make the entire battlefield overrun with vines and glow. You're not weak. Han Fei had seen the battlefield in the heavenly desolation city, which was truly horrifying. Lives were piled into the sea as if they were worthless. However, the level of the battle was different. On the battlefield of heavenly desolation city, hundreds of kinds of creatures attacked each other, making it impossible to guard against them. The tide-calling crab, on the other hand, could only attack with its pincers. As long as someone dodged its claws, it would basically be done for. Suddenly, Han Fei heard someone call, "The 12th Squad Scout will be filling in." As it turned out, two peak-level dangling fishers had been pinched to death, causing the team to retreat. Hence, the situation of filling in the gap appeared. Han Fei was not in a hurry to get on the field. At present, the casualty rate was very low. There were only 4 teams of scouts left to fill in. However, the carcasses of the tide-calling crabs were piled up on the ground. When the bodies of the tide-calling crabs were piled up more than 3 meters high, the front line was moved back dozens of meters. It seemed to be a tactic. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Lung Hui still hadn't returned. At this point, 8 teams of scouts had filled in, and the rest were waiting patiently. Yuling said, "It's almost time." Han Fei wondered, "What do you mean?" Yuling said, "The Guardians had a high combat ability in the first hour. However, after this period of time, the loss of combat capabilities would be too great, and it would be extremely easy to be damaged in battle. So, it's almost time for us to fill in." Han Fei sensed for a moment, only to discover that while there weren't as many tide-calling crabs as before, they were still everywhere on the skeleton shore. He couldn't help but wonder what will happen after the Guardian Regiment combat power drops. Wu Xiaoxiao took a deep breath and said, "Some of them will retreat. The scouts will take their places and buy them some time to rest and refill their spiritual energy." Gu Daliang said, "The higher the stars, the greater the pressure. A small team of high-level scouts can be used as 2 or 3 small teams of guards." It'd seem reasonable to do so. After all, for a hanging fisher, their recovery speed wouldn't be slow as long as a spirit gatherer provided them with spiritual energy and healing techniques. After another half an hour, the Guardians retreated another 50 meters, and a second wall of crabs appeared. At this moment, a lot of scouts around Han Fei roared, "The scouts of the 15th Squad will fill in. The scouts of the 17th Squad will fill in. The scouts of the 23rd Squad will fill in." Lung Hui suddenly showed up. "Captain!" Han Fei instantly roared, "The scouts of the 37th Squad will fill in." With that, Han Fei led Lung Hui and the others to rush into a gap. While charging, Han Fei shouted, Wu Xiao Xiao, freeze the ground. Don't charge head-on. Follow me, or Gu Daliang, to create an environment and cooperate with Leng Hui. Han Fei looked at Gu Daliang. What weapon will you use? Gu Daliang was briefly stunned. A broadsword. Han Fei threw an ultra-quality spiritual long saber to Gu Daliang. I don't have a broadsword. You can borrow this one. In the end, Han Fei said to Yu Lingyun, don't charge too far away from Gu Daliang and stay close to him. Yu Lingyun and the rest of them were rather surprised that Han Fei put himself in the position of captain in an instant. Han Fei simply made the simplest tactical arrangements. He hadn't seen Yu Lingyun and the others cooperate with each other, so he couldn't command them accurately. He needed to observe first. After the 5 of them charged forward, 2 teams of guardians immediately retreated. When some of them retreated, they were slightly shocked to see that Han Fei, an advanced dangling fisher, was charging forward. Thud! As the vanguard, Gu Daliang pushed his shield forward, and there was nothing but green in front of him. Immediately, a layer of ice crystals covered his body, making him look like a large diamond man. Gu Daliang, who had an ultra-quality spiritual saber, held his shield in one hand and his saber in the other. After a burst of spiritual energy, 3 tide, calling crabs were cut into halves by him. The ground had already been frozen. Many tide, calling crabs accidentally fell to the ground. Every time Leng Hui appeared, he would stab his dagger between the eyes of a tide, calling crab. Yu Lingyun's battle was rather fierce. Her spiritual beast was a fiery fish, so the long sword in her hand was ablaze, and the sword auras that she released were all red. When the sword auras were released, Yu Lingyun's body was pierced with golden light that was equally sharp. In the blink of an eye, she had pierced through 2 tide, calling crabs. It wasn't a problem for a squad of scouts to cover the gaps of a couple of guardian squads. Han Fei, on the other hand, was quite simple. He was holding a branch in his hand, and every time he waved it, he would not stop until at least 3 tide calling crabs were cut in half. That was when the tide calling crabs blocked it with their pincers. Compared to Han Fei's ease, the others' battles were quite violent. The entire coast was lit up with a myriad of colors. Spiritual energy was rippling, and saber auras and sword shadows were raging. Some people held giant axes and left golden marks dozens of meters long. Someone shot spears and didn't stop until they pierced through dozens of tide, calling crabs. All in all, when the squad of scouts came to the front, they were able to hold the front line. Of course, Han Fei paid more attention to his own side. Based on his observation, Leng Hui was fast, but his reaction was not fast enough. Wu Xiao Xiao was not only good at freezing, but she could also attach herself to the purple sand eel, which made the 3-leaf frigid wind grass poisonous. However, after she froze dozens of tide, calling crabs, a problem arose. Firstly, she wasn't strong enough to kill them, and secondly, Wu Xiaoxiao's supply of spiritual energy couldn't keep up. Han Fei immediately pointed his finger, and a pillar of spiritual energy crawled into Wu Xiaoxiao's body. The girl was instantly refreshed, and she covered the ground within dozens of meters with frost. As for Gu Daliang, he had no weapons in his armor box, and he fought like a soul warrior. His body was not bad, but he lacked battle techniques. Among them, Yu Lingyun did the best. The woman's body was covered in flames, and she killed almost 20 tide, calling crabs with one slash. Not only was the pressure on her own squad reduced, but so was the pressure on the neighboring squads. It was a pity that Yu Lingyun didn't launch a second attack after the first one. Her supply of spiritual energy couldn't keep up, and the previous attack seemed to have consumed her energy too. Seeing that a tide calling crab was about to catch Yu Lingyun with its pincers, Han Fei's first reaction was not to save her. It was impossible that Yu Lingyun didn't notice such an obvious attack. As he expected, Yu Lingyun's body slightly shook as she escaped from the pincers as if by magic. She left a few blurred shadows in the middle. Huh? Teleportation? No, it's her contractual spiritual beast, the ghost spiritual fish. It seems to have the ability to teleport in a very small range. Just like that, Everyone fought for about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn before another batch of guards was replaced. The first batch of people who went down came up again. However, those people were obviously not fully recovered yet. The pressure on the scout squads had increased a lot. They were under a lot of pressure, but there weren't many casualties. Up to now, none of the 5 or 6 squads around Han Fei had been killed or wounded. All of a sudden, a big sword suddenly emerged from the sand under the feet of a member of the neighboring squad. A hanging fisher didn't react in time and was pierced through by the shadow of the big sword. Not good. It's a big sword water flea. Everybody, pay attention to the ground. Daily update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 612. Han Fei had been fully focused on the battlefield. He had sensed the ground, but he didn't notice anything below his feet earlier. Then, he focused his attention on Yulin and the others. At this moment, Han Fei sensed again, only to discover that a large number of big sword water fleas had jumped out of the ground. It further suggested that it was an organized attack, not as simple as crabs coming ashore to lay eggs. However, the number of big sword water fleas below the beach was much less than that of the tide, calling crabs. Now that someone noticed them, everybody's senses were fully unleashed. However, they had to be on guard, and the pressure was immediately increased. The reaction of the guards could not be described as slow. Just as the shadow of the great sword appeared, purple smoke was already coming out of the observation tower on the other side, and the whistling sound was heard again. In the sky, several peak-level dangling fishers and Zhong Han from the 8th Battalion took action too. If it were just the tide-calling crabs, they wouldn't have attacked them at all. But it seemed that 3,000 people were not enough. Han Fei's expression changed. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp came out. Han Fei kicked it. Go down there and kill any creature you see. At the same time, Han Fei roared. Yulin, come back. Wu Xiao, ignore the battle on the ground and focus on the underground. Gu Daliang, focus on defense. Leng Hui, work with Yulin. Yulin frowned. Then we won't have enough men to fight head-on. Han Fei smiled casually. I'll do it. Han Fei waved the branch in his hand, and crescent-shaped knife auras slashed out. 8 knife auras were slashed out, and almost 100 tide-calling crabs within 30 meters were killed. However, the branch in Han Fei's hand couldn't withstand the outburst of spiritual energy and exploded. Yulin and the others, as well as the squads around Han Fei, were all dumbfounded. What the hell? Was it so strong? It wiped out so many tide-calling crabs in the blink of an eye. Someone swallowed. Even if the tide-calling crabs were weak, they were level 41 creatures after all. Although they were just regular creatures, they had surpassed level 40 after all. Instead of retreating, Han Fei charged forward. 10 blue sea wandering dragon daggers appeared next to him and followed him into the tide of crabs. Leng Hui asked, "Are you crazy?" Yulin said, "Come back. It's not that serious." However, in the next second, they saw the dozens of blue sea wandering dragon daggers spinning around Han Fei, sweeping the battlefield like a meat grinder. Han Fei rushed forward for a kilometer, then turned around and came back. In less than a minute, a large number of tide-calling crabs had been killed, although the shadows of the giant swords kept emerging from the sand. However, no matter how Han Fei moved his feet and turned his body, none of the big swords could hit him. The peak-level 4-star hanging fishers were all stunned. Is he an advanced dangling fisher? Zhong Han, the captain of the 8 brigades, frowned. All 10 ultra-quality spiritual weapons had souls sealed in them. Back then, when he asked for someone, the higher-ups only said that they would arrange for a relatively strong person to come over. When Zhong Han learned that Han Fei was only an advanced dangling fisher, although he didn't underestimate him, he just felt that Han Fei was a heavenly talent and should be able to be the captain. But now, it seemed that he was a little too strong. Yulin and the others all widened their eyes. They were still fighting and retreating, and Han Fei had gone back and forth for a kilometer. Wu Xiao exclaimed, "How strong is the captain exactly?" Gu Daliang nodded. "He's a strong captain. I like him." Yulin eyes flickered. It's not a good thing that he's too strong. How long do you think he could be a captain if he's too strong? Everyone couldn't help but look gloomy. That'd make sense. According to Han Fei's strength, it probably wouldn't be difficult for him to get 300,000 points. Han Fei, however, didn't realize that. Of course, he could train the soldiers, but it was obviously beyond the scope of training soldiers. Although he could still fight, the casualties would probably increase sharply. Would he lose dozens or even 100 people just to train the soldiers? Besides, he didn't show any particularly shocking toughness. He only used 10 blue sea wandering dragon daggers, and the rest were nothing more than movement techniques and speed. Even the other 4-star hanging fishers could do that. Han Fei was about to go back to reduce the pressure on the way. He felt that he should be able to hold on for a while. But before he returned to the team, he heard Zhong Han say, "Han Fei, can you cut the battlefield horizontally? Go back and forth horizontally." Han Fei was stunned, wondering if it would be too eye-catching. Zhong Han said again, "Don't worry. You're only a genius if you can do that, but not a real heavenly talent." Hearing that, Han Fei immediately replied, "Yes." Then, Han Fei began to charge north from the south with his 10 blue sea wandering dragon daggers. It was a long distance of almost 50 kilometers, and it would take a lot of time for him to make a round trip. As a result, the entire Guardian Regiment and the 8th Battalion saw a circle of light flash past dozens of meters in front of them with a whoosh. All the tide, calling crabs in the path of the saber aura were pierced to death by a chaotic streak of light. They couldn't block it, even with their pincers. No matter how hard the pincers of the tide calling crabs were, they couldn't be as hard as ultra-quality spiritual knives with sealed souls. Someone shouted, "Look, am I seeing things? He seems to be an advanced, dangling fisher. This guy is so strong. Does he think he's mowing grass? Look, they're all ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Is he an unparalleled heavenly talent? This guy must be from the Thousand-Star City. Is he from the Heavenly Sword Sect? Are you blind? The Heavenly Sword Sect uses swords. This guy uses knives. However, this guy is a body refiner. He's probably from the Mountain Sea Pavilion. No, it's also possible that he's from the Grand Void Academy." The Guardians of the 8th Battalion were all dumbfounded. Guo 1, the captain of the 31st Squad, in particular, opened his mouth wide. Damn it, why did the higher-ups assign such a strong captain to the 37th Squad? We can't compete with them in the future. While Han Fei was cutting across the battlefield, the peak-level hanging fishers all unleashed their ultimate skills. Captain Zhong Han of the 8th Battalion, for example, held a spear that was brimming with killing intent. As he tossed the spear out, it was as if a fire dragon tore through the void, creating a path of flames. The spear blasted out a shockwave that was 30 meters wide and over 5,000 meters long, killing all the tide-beckoning crabs within the area. One of the Guardians swept the tide of tide, calling crabs with 2 spinning light balls in his hands, as if he were harvesting wheat. Another person summoned a large number of vines. He waved his vines and blew up hundreds of tide, calling crabs. While Han Fei was cutting across the battlefield, 5 peak-level hanging fishers took action and cleared a large area. When Han Fei rushed back, they had already launched the 5th attack. In the sky, the 2nd Guardian Legion had arrived. At this moment, they had landed and charged at Han Fei in place of the previous one. At this moment, the counterattack began. The 2 Guardian Legions and the 8th Battalion, consisting of almost 6,000 people, pressed forward for dozens of kilometers. At this moment, Han Fei had returned to the team. Yun and the others looked at Han Fei as if he were a monster with weird expressions on their faces. Han Fei asked, "Why are you looking at me? You have ultra-quality spiritual weapons. You could do it too." Leng Hui replied, "No, my body, speed, and spiritual power can't keep up with yours." Wu Xiaoxiao nodded. "Yes, you're exaggerating." Gu Daliang added, "Even when my armor box is full of weapons, I wouldn't dare to fight like this." Han Fei grinned and said, "I'm doing this for you. I want to earn some points and materials so that you can build weapons." As Han Fei spoke, he held 2 knives in his hands. He had already retrieved the blue sea wandering dragon daggers. After all, the reinforcements had arrived. If Han Fei wanted to show off, he could only show off that his spiritual power was very durable. Suddenly, Han Fei's expression changed. He looked at Yu Lingyun and asked, "What's the species of the red crab that's more than 20 meters long with steel thorns?" Yu Lingyun was confused, and Lung Hui said, "Wolf crab. But the wolf crab isn't that big. It should be a wolf king crab." Bam! Suddenly, Zhong Han flew to the sky. He stepped on the void, grabbed a spear in his hand, and threw it down. At the same time, Zhong Han roared, "Wolf Crab King! Everybody help me!" Yu Lingyun and the others all changed their expressions and looked at Han Fei. Is it really a wolf king? But it must be 3,000 meters away, right? Han Fei looked at it. The nearest hanging fisher was more than 10 kilometers away. It seemed that he was the closest to the Wolf King. Also, in his perception, the Wolf King blocked Zhong Han's spear with its pincers. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei soared up and tripled his speed. One of his fists was already dark red, and surging energy was spurting out. Even a cloud of fire was ignited in the void. Bam! A fist mark that was more than 5 meters in size appeared a kilometer away. It crossed the void at an incredible speed, crushing all the tide, calling crabs on the way. Rumble! A big crab was blown away. It rolled dozens of meters away in the crowd of crabs, with a big hole on its shell. At this moment, Zhong Han had just blocked the overwhelming steel thorns that the wolf crab unleashed. Another spear burst out in his hand and nailed the Wolf King to the ground. After the Wolf King died, the tide-calling crabs all retreated. The big sword water fleas under the sand also retreated. Zhong Han landed and tilted his head to look at Han Fei, his eyelids shivering. He was thinking, Han Fei's punch is as powerful as a spear? You're telling me that he's an advanced dangling fisher? Are you kidding me? Is he a captain who was transferred from another place? Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 613. The battle was over the moment the Wolf Crab King died. The tide-calling crabs and the big sword water fleas retreated like a tide. However, everybody was looking at Han Fei. Han Fei. Pooh! Han Fei suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. His face was pale, and his spiritual energy was agitated. Ah, no, the secret technique has hurt me too much. Come on, Gu Daliang, support me. I can't move anymore. Seeing this, many people heaved a sigh of relief. That's more like it. The secret technique must have been too powerful. If Han Fei could unleash such a terrifying blow just now without being injured, how could he do that? That would simply be a little too abnormal. But even so, the terrifying power he unleashed just now suggested that Han Fei's most powerful attack had reached the limits of an advanced hanging fisher, right? Whether or not Han Fei had a secret technique, it was already horrifying that he could unleash the power of the punch just now. This was just a fist technique. The scene of Han Fei cutting across the battlefield with 10 ultra-quality spiritual knives just now shocked many people. Zhong Han strode forward and landed in front of Han Fei. He frowned and asked, "What's the side effect of this secret technique?" Han Fei pretended that it was difficult for him to say, "After this punch, I'll have no combat power at all. However, with the nourishment of spiritual fruits, I'll recover 60% of my combat power by this time tomorrow." So fast. Zhong Han couldn't help but guess that it had to be an advanced secret technique. Otherwise, he couldn't have recovered so fast. Thinking of Han Fei's weapons just now, Zhong Han was even more certain that Han Fei was probably the richest and strongest student from the 36 towns this time. Zhong Han frowned. "Go back and take a good rest. Your aura is almost the same as that of a peak-level dangling fisher. Don't fight too much for the time being. Let's increase your strength to that of a peak-level dangling fisher first." Han Fei nodded. "Okay, no problem." Gu Daliang was about to carry Han Fei on his shoulder, and Han Fei quickly said, "Slow down. It hurts. Hold me and let me walk slowly." Gu Daliang grinned. "No need. Let's go back on a boat." Han Fei also stuffed an energy spiritual fruit into his mouth, and then his face looked slightly better. He cried out, "Ah," as though he had been badly wounded. The 4-star hanging fishers of the guards landed one after another and looked at Han Fei strangely. Someone said, "Have you trained your physique to the limit?" Someone said with certainty, "Definitely. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to withstand such violent energy seeping out of their bodies." One of the guard captains nodded solemnly. "I finally know why you're only an advanced dangling fisher. You are completely walking the path of body refinement. You want to break through the realm with your physique and become a hanging fisher." The few of them were having a lively discussion. They were still analyzing what would happen after their physique broke through to the next realm. In the end, everyone came to a consensus. Once Han Fei made a breakthrough with his physique, he would immediately have the combat power comparable to that of an ordinary peak-level intermediate dangling fisher. If he fused his spiritual beast and contractual spiritual beast and used the secret technique just now, the consumption would be reduced by more than half. After they thought they had analyzed Han Fei's path of training, they weren't so surprised anymore. It was only natural that Han Fei was strong since he had trained his physique to such an extent. While the other scouts were still shocked, Gu Daliang had already controlled the boat to take Han Fei back. When Han Fei was on the boat, he asked immediately, "How many points? How many points can we get this time?" Wu Xiaoxiao shrieked, "Captain, you're disabled now. Why do you still care about points?" Han Fei said with mixed feelings, "I did it for you. Look at you. You're so poor that you don't even have weapons, and you're scavenging in the sea. I can't bear to see you like this." Gu Daliang blushed. Are you serious?" Han Fei said solemnly. "Not serious? Your armor box is empty. What else do you want?" Yu Lingyun frowned and looked at Han Fei. "Well, weren't you in a lot of pain just now?" "Oh, ouch. It hurts." Everyone, Wu Xiaoxiao raised her fingers and calculated. In such a large-scale battle, the points should be evenly distributed. However, Captain, you cut across the battlefield and helped Lord Zhonghan. You should be able to get 10,000 points. Han Fei was dumbfounded. "Wait, only 10,000 points?" Yu Lingyu nodded. "It's not low. If you killed the Wolf Crab King on your own, your points wouldn't be low. You might even get 20,000 points. Generally speaking, it was extremely rare to get 10,000 points in a single battle. You have to be at least a 4-star powerhouse to get this score." Han Fei said, "I forgot to ask. How many points does a tide calling crab get?" Yu Lingyun said, 30 points. Han Fei was lost for words. "Did I kill 1,000 of them?" Wu Xiaoxiao said, "Hey, Captain, you can't just count it like that. Your mission is to fill in the spots. If you take all the points, there will be almost 6,000 people left. Won't they have no points?" Han Fei thought for a moment and realized that it did make sense. He couldn't steal too many points in his first battle. He had to keep a low profile. However, it seemed that he was already a little high profile. Did he have to keep a low profile for a while? With this in mind, Han Fei decided to be an excellent captain in the next few months. He was weaker than a captain, but stronger than a regular captain, so it wouldn't be too high profile. Thinking about that, Han Fei grinned. "Well, I picked up dozens of tide calling crab pincers when I killed it just now. All its essence is gathered here. It must taste good. Let's go back for dinner." Pooh, Wu Xiaoxiao and the others looked at Han Fei, dumbfounded. "You still remember to pick up crab pincers when you were fighting? Are you a devil?" Under Han Fei's treehouse, the 5 of them sat on the ground. Every time Han Fei emptied a crab pincer, Gu Daliang would happily take it away. Han Fei was lost for words. "Daliang, why do you need so many crab pincers?" Gu Daliang chuckled. "The tide-calling crab's pincers are not as good as high-quality spiritual weapons, but they're not far from it. They're even harder than mid-quality spiritual weapons." Wu Xiaoxiao poked Han Fei with her finger and said, "Captain, not everybody can take out 10 ultra-quality spiritual weapons casually like you do." Leng Hui said casually, "And they have sealed souls." Pondering for a moment, Yu Lingyun said, "Captain, your wounds haven't healed yet. Should we transfer to another squad tomorrow?" Han Fei quickly shook his head. "No, that's unnecessary. I'll be 80% recovered by this time tomorrow." "Huh?" Wu Xiaoxiao looked at Han Fei. Captain, didn't you say that you would only be 60% recovered by this time tomorrow? Han Fei was briefly stunned. Oh, I was wrong. I said 60% recovered. However, 60% is enough. Don't tell me it will be so thrilling every time. Gu Daliang asked, really? Han Fei grinned. Of course. Why are you panicking? I'm not panicking at all. Will our points be distributed? Can you guys go change your equipment? Gu Daliang, you should at least get a few shields and swords in your armor box, right? Also, Wu Xiao Xiao, what technique do you practice? Your spiritual energy is useless. Lung Hui is also a bit lousy at movement techniques. You're making things difficult for me. Wu Xiao Xiao pouted. Captain, are you despising us? Han Fei denied it. I'm not. I'm just reminding you. Wu Xiao Xiao scoffed. You're just despising us. Han Fei scoffed. Hey, don't look so pitiful. You're older than me. Wu Xiao Xiao scoffed. Brad, I look petite. Han Fei scoffed. But you're still older than me. Han Fei and Wu Xiao Xiao began to bicker. However, in the eyes of the other three, it was rather harmonious. Even Lung Hui, who wasn't as cold as he was, couldn't help but put on a smile. Eventually, Yu Lingyun interjected. Han Fei, you're the captain now. Was what you said a suggestion? If necessary, it's not like we can't use the points we have. Han Fei said solemnly. Yes, I'm telling the truth. You're indeed at a great disadvantage, especially Xiao Xiao and Daliang. What about before? Didn't you notice it? Gu Daliang nodded. Before, I had a lot of weapons. But last time, in the battle where the former captain died, I lost all my weapons. Wu Xiao Xiao nodded. I know, but I don't have the money to replace them. Our previous points were all used up when we advanced. Originally, we had accumulated a lot last time, but in the battle, we lost almost all of them. Han Fei understood. Was it 3 months ago? Lung Hui nodded. We encountered dozens of exotic creatures. The former captain sacrificed himself to save us. Han Fei was stunned. He couldn't help but admire the former captain. If it were him, he would have probably left those people behind if he wasn't strong enough. Pondering for a moment, Han Fei said, How about this? You go buy equipment and techniques after dinner. If my share of points comes earlier, you guys can use it first. Everybody raised their head and looked at Han Fei. That was almost 10,000 points. Han Fei grinned. Points are not so important to me right now. I feel that I may make a breakthrough in the next month. Only when you become stronger will it be more convenient for you to investigate. If something happens, I'll have to use the secret method again, which will damage my foundation. Near evening, Han Fei's points were delivered. To be precise, it was 9,200 points. The others each had 1,000 points. And the way the points were distributed was quite strange. The balance was directly displayed on the back of the waist tag. Han Fei was taken aback. It turned out that this waist tag could not only be used as a life tablet, but also as a bank card. As for bank transfer, it was even more convenient. As long as he activated the waist tag with his spiritual sense, he could swipe it on the other party's waist tag, and with a thought, the points would be transferred. And he could transfer as many points as he wanted. Han Fei's first reaction was not the principle of this thing, but didn't this mean that he could rob others? The author said, these 3 chapters are daily updates. We'll add chapters a little later. Dodo, you'll be the first to add chapters. I'll write first at about 7 o'clock. Don't worry, I won't miss any chapters. Thank you for your monthly votes. I'll continue to ask for more. I can still write, end of this chapter. Chapter 614. Han Fei gave all the points to Yu Lingyun and the other 3 for a reason. The main reason was that the few of them were too weak. Whether it was their equipment or their cultivation techniques, they were all lacking. This made Han Fei feel that it was very unfavorable for his subsequent actions. He was prepared to stay in the advanced scout team for a period of time. As a long-term teammate, if the team members were weak, not only would it make people feel that the team leader was useless, but it would also be a hindrance. The next day, Gu Daliang now had 10 more superior-grade spiritual weapons. Lung Hui exchanged for a demon-level high-grade movement technique. Wu Xiao Xiao did not exchange anything. In her words, it was not something that could be done in a day or two. Besides, as a spirit gatherer, she didn't need to worry about cultivation techniques in the short term. Yuling Yun didn't exchange anything either. All the points were given to Gu Daliang and Lung Hui. At this point, the five of them did not have more than 10 points in total. Above the skeleton coast, Han Fei asked, "How large is our detection range?" Yuling Yun replied, "About 200 kilometers." Han Fei was stunned. So small? Yuling Yun was lost for words. This is not the level 3 fishery. One could travel tens of thousands of kilometers in the level 3 fishery without encountering a single exotic creature. However, it's easy to run into them around the Scattered Stars Island. As the few of them spoke, they saw a black shadow diving down from the sky. It was like a meteorite falling from the sky, plunging into the sea. Then a big bird flew out of the sea with a big fish in its claws. Wu Xiaoxiao said, "That's a black wind heron, a rare level 45 seabird. They fall from the sky at an extremely fast speed, and their sharp claws can easily crush high-grade spirit artifacts." Watching the big bird fly away, Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Has anyone ever captured such a bird as a contractual spiritual beast?" Wu Xiaoxiao replied, "Of course. Countless people have tried. However, they later found out that even if they caught him, they would not be able to catch him. After the fusion, he would not be able to use the flying ability of these birds. Moreover, it's not easy to fight at the bottom of the sea with this kind of bird." Lung Hui added, "Besides, there aren't many creatures on the Scattered Stars Island in the first place. These birds are social creatures, and they are very vengeful, so they're very difficult to catch." Han Fei nodded. "Are we going to the sea? It's already been half a day. Why are we still flying in the sky?" Yuling Yun said, "The first 200 kilometers won't be very deep. It's only less than 1,000 meters deep. We can use our senses to sense the situation at the bottom of the sea. Once we cross the first 200 kilometers, the water depth will exceed 1,000 meters. Under certain circumstances, we will need to enter the sea." Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "How wide is your perception range?" Everyone looked up at Han Fei. Yesterday, they had already guessed that Han Fei's perception might be very terrifying. Yuling Yun said, "Right now, Xiao Xiao has the largest perception range, which is exactly 1,000 meters. Lung Hui and I are 800 meters, and Daliang is 600 meters. Han Fei asked in confusion, "How do you increase your perception range?" Wu Xiaoxiao said, "There are visualization images. However, visualization diagrams were very expensive. Previously, the five of us had accumulated 100,000 points to exchange for the first level of a visualization technique. After that, it can be shared." Han Fei was stunned. "Visualization painting?" Wu Xiaoxiao said, "Don't you have one?" "Captain, your perception exceeded 3,000 meters yesterday. Don't tell me you don't have a visualization diagram." Han Fei pondered for a moment. So to speak, the god-scaring painting was a very powerful visualization diagram. If he said that he cultivated it through a visualization diagram, wouldn't the god-scaring painting be too unbelievable and attract other people's attention? So, Han Fei instantly said with a smile, "I don't. I grew by eating soul crystals." "What?" All four of them, including Lung Hui, looked at Han Fei in shock. "You ate soul crystals?" Wu Xiaoxiao exclaimed. "Even level 1 soul crystals require 3,000 points to exchange for one. Level 2 soul crystals can be exchanged for at least 30,000 points. Also, as your perception range increases, eating them doesn't seem to be very effective. Captain, how many soul crystals have you eaten?" Han Fei coughed and said, "Well, when I was in the level 3 fishery, I ate about 1,000 of them by chance. I bought them with money, not by force." Everyone, at that time, a picture popped up in their heads. They were drooling at the thought that this jerk cultivated with soul crystals as if they were candy. Gu Daliang took a deep breath. "Poverty limits my imagination." Yuling Yun and the others secretly sighed. "We don't understand the world of the rich." All of a sudden, Lung Hui was delighted. He launched his fishing hook, followed by Yuling Yun and Wu Xiaoxiao. Yuling Yun said, "It's a silver-scaled fish. Attack it from 3 sides and don't let it run away. Gu Daliang immediately stabilized the boat and grinned in midair. In Han Fei's perception, it was a long fish that was emitting silver light. It was about 3 meters long and not slow at all. When the hook was 200 meters away from it, the big fish had already sensed it and was fleeing quickly. Unfortunately, the 3 fishing hooks were launched at the same time and were not slow at all. After a minute, the big fish was finally caught by Lung Hui's hook. Then, Yuling Yun's and Wu Xiaoxiao's hooks followed. A big fish was pulled out of the sea. Yuling Yun roared, "Daliang, lower the boat. Xiaoxiao, freeze it." Han Fei saw that 3 silver scales on the silver-scaled fish darted out in the blink of an eye, trying to cut the fishing line. Yuling Yun and the others hurried to shake the fishing line. But Wu Xiaoxiao's fishing line was still cut. However, the moment the fishing line was cut, Wu Xiaoxiao had already jumped down from midair. 1,000 leaves that looked like snowflakes had drifted past. In the blink of an eye, the silver-scaled fish was covered in frost and frozen. A moment later, the silver-scaled fish was dragged to the boat. Han Fei looked at the silver-scaled fish, and information popped up. Name, silver-scaled fish, introduction. This is a type of silver-armored fish that boasts tough defense abilities. The silver-scaled fish is ferocious and has a shocking bite force. There are 3 silver wheels on its tail. When they are fully activated, they are as powerful as high-quality spiritual weapons. Level 42, quality, rare, spiritual energy greater than 1,617 points. Effect, it can broaden the veins and enhance spiritual power if it's eaten over a long period of time. Collectible, silver scales, absorbable. Han Fei didn't find the fish unusual when he saw it. It was just a rare creature. The 3 scales could be made into weapons, but they weren't big. But the scale wasn't big, so what could it do? Seeing Han Fei's indifference, Wu Xiaoxiao couldn't help but say sweetly, "Captain, this is a silver-scaled fish. Its meat is delicious, and its scales are very tough. Each of them is worth 500 points. We're going to make a fortune." Han Fei thought of something. "It does look good. Why don't we stew it tonight?" Immediately, Wu Xiaoxiao blocked the silver-scaled fish with her body, and Lung Hui behind her killed the silver-scaled fish and threw it into his sea-swallowing seashell. Han Fei said with a wry smile, "Do you really have to do that? Just take the scales. They're delicious. Wouldn't it be a shame not to eat them?" Wu Xiaoxiao pouted. "Sell them for money." Han Fei waved his hand lazily. Fine. You can do whatever you want with the fish that you caught. I can catch them myself, all right?" As he talked, Han Fei launched the Blue Sea Wandering Dragon Rod and landed more than 2,000 meters away. The hook and line disappeared without a trace as soon as they fell into the water. In the next moment, he activated Thousand Twining, and a big fish flew close. Then a silver-scaled fish was added to the boat. Han Fei smacked his lips and said, "Can we eat this one now? Let's make a deal. I'll steam this one and won't sell it." Wu Xiaoxiao opened her mouth wide and exclaimed. She then grabbed Han Fei's arm. "We can sell it for money." "Okay." Han Fei raised his head. "I won't sell it. I want to eat it." Yuling Yun, however, changed her expression. "Wait, don't you find it strange?" Lung Hui nodded. "Silver-scaled fish are not gregarious fish. It doesn't seem right that 2 of them have appeared at the same time." Han Fei smiled. "What's wrong with that? They're rare fish. There's nothing special about them." Yuling Yun shook her head. "Daliang, circle around and see if there's a 3rd silver-scaled fish." Then, Yuling Yun looked at Han Fei. "Captain, you have a wide range of perception. You must be careful. If there's a 3rd one, we might have run into a silver shark." "Huh? Silver shark? What's that?" Wu Xiaoxiao's eyes widened. "Really? If it's a silver shark, Captain, spread out your senses. The silver shark is good stuff. It has blue fins that look like wings and is silver all over. It's an exotic creature. It's very valuable." Han Fei was rather curious too. He nodded and said to Gu Daliang, "Daliang, circle around this area within 50 kilometers. I'll spread out my senses." Gu Daliang nodded. "Okay." The fishing boat suddenly accelerated and tripled its speed. Han Fei's senses quickly scanned the bottom of the water. On the 3rd circle, Han Fei suddenly opened his eyes. "Stop!" Han Fei rose up solemnly and threw the fishing rod in his hand 1,000 meters to the west. The hook entered the water. Spiritual energy surged out, and the hook turned into a big fish as big as the silver-scaled fish. The silver-scaled fish that Han Fei transformed with the winding snake technique was slightly different from the real silver-scaled fish. After all, it was made of spiritual energy. Therefore, its spiritual energy content was very high. If a silver shark was vigilant enough, it might not be fooled. However, as long as it was a fish, it might not be able to resist the temptation of spiritual energy. The silver-scaled fish, transformed by spiritual energy, swam on the bottom of the sea. It swam 5 or 6 kilometers from west to south. The blue-silver, single-horned fish slowly swam by 500 meters away. At that moment, Han Fei sensed that the single-horned fish changed color. Its body turned silver and white. It began to approach Han Fei's silver-scaled fish in disguise. Wu Xiaoxiao said in a low voice, "Captain, did you notice it?" Han Fei said, "Don't talk. The 3,200 votes will be added at about 10 o'clock in the evening. Let me take a rest and start the battle immediately. Anyway, you'll see the 3,500 votes before you wake up tomorrow." End of this chapter. Chapter 615. Han Fei had caught exotic creatures more than once, but he had never fished one before. The silver shark was lurking. Han Fei controlled the silver-scaled fish to stop cautiously. Then, he looked around and continued to swim. The silver shark was getting closer and closer. 300 meters, 200 meters, 100 meters. All of a sudden, a streak of light burst out. In the blink of an eye, the horn poked Han Fei's silver-scaled fish. However, as soon as the horn poked, spiritual energy burst out. The silver shark immediately realized that something was wrong and was about to slip away. However, Han Fei had already activated the flash hook technique and hooked the hook into the silver shark's mouth. Then, he used thousand twining to tie up the silver shark. However, exotic creatures were exotic creatures after all. The thousand twining was only half tied up, and the other half was dodged by the silver shark's rapid sprint. Bam! The fishing boat Han Fei was on was suddenly pulled by a huge force. The whole fishing boat was falling quickly. Han Fei shouted, "Stabilize the fishing boat, or I won't have any leverage." Hardly had Han Fei said that when lightning-like light burst out from the horn of the silver shark in the water. The speed of the entire silver shark was doubled. Han Fei could still resist it. However, the fishing boat that was suspended in midair couldn't bear the huge force and was out of control. Leng Hui, Yu Lingyun, and Wu Xiaoxiao had jumped off the boat. They were all excited at this moment. He must have hooked it. The silver-scaled fish couldn't be so powerful, so it must be a silver shark. Han Fei stomped and leaped into the air. He abandoned the fishing boat. If he wanted to catch exotic creatures, he had to do it in the sea. Fishing in the sky was too passive unless he improved his skills. In the sky, Han Fei was dragged forward like a bolt of lightning by the silver shark and fell into the sea in the next second. The moment he entered the sea, Han Fei performed the 64-dimensional fish dragon dance while retracting the fishing rod. Although Han Fei hadn't mastered this combat technique yet, it was faster than the shadow swimming art. Since Han Fei was retracting his fishing rod, he was getting closer and closer to the silver shark. Yu Lingyun and the others were left behind by Han Fei. Han Fei sensed that he was more than a kilometer away from Yu Lingyun and the others. At this time, Goldie immediately attached to his body. Han Fei almost turned into a streak of light and rushed at the silver shark. When Han Fei saw the silver shark naturally saw Han Fei too. Therefore, a silver thorn of light shot at Han Fei in an instant. Han Fei had a bad feeling. This thorn seemed to be quite powerful. Immediately, he grabbed the fishing rod with one hand and clenched his fist with the other, activating the art of invincibility. He only had time to throw out 3 punches, and the silver light had already pierced through the 3 fist imprints. F*CK so strong? Han Fei didn't dare to neglect it. Because there was a touch of blue on the thorn, Han Fei suspected that it was poison. Although he had taken the venomous tulip, It was an anti-poison fruit from the level 3 fishery. Han Fei wasn't sure if he could resist the poison from the unknown place. Immediately, Han Fei took out an ultra-quality spiritual shield. Clang! A harsh collision sound came into Han Fei's ears. The shield was pierced through, and a silver spike was stuck in it. The front half and the back half of the spike went through Han Fei's neck. Gudu! Han Fei swallowed, threw the shield into Forge the Universe, and accelerated again. When he was only 100 meters away from the silver shark, data appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Name: Longsnout Silver Shark. Introduction. The longsnout silver shark belongs to the order Silver Shark. It has heavenly silver thorns on its back, which carry blue-silver poison, which can kill hanging fishers. The longsnout silver shark is extremely fast. Its brain and the horn are fused into one, which contains terrifying electric currents. Level 45, quality, exotic, contains spiritual energy greater than 3,405 points. Effect: after eating, it can strengthen the body and increase resistance to electric currents. Collectible, heavenly silver thorns, absorbable. When Han Fei saw the information of this long snout silver horn, he saw this guy turn around and aim its horn at Han Fei. Shoot! A silver bolt of lightning broke through the water and darted at Han Fei. Han Fei's face changed, and he punched at it with a level 3 fist imprint. In fact, he could use the draw technique. However, the horn on the silver shark's head seemed to be quite awesome. If it was damaged, wouldn't it be a great loss? Although Han Fei knew that the 3 fist imprints couldn't block the horn, he still chose to do so. However, Han Fei had already activated a spiritual energy protective cover. Then he stomped on the ground, and a 6-patterned spiritual energy shield surrounded his body. This was the only defensive array that Han Fei had learned that could be activated with one stomp: the 6 spirit armor. Chialu. The long-snout silver shark sensed danger, and the electric currents had all fallen on Han Fei. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Han Fei trembled all over like a Parkinson's disease. However, he had become used to taking the electric currents and the lightning strikes. So, when the big horn was about to pierce him, the big shield appeared again. Clang! Boom! Crack! The horn, penetrated by an ultra-quality spiritual weapon, shattered the 6 spirit armor and the spiritual energy protective cover, and the tip of the horn touched Han Fei's body. Attach! The moment little fatty attached to Han Fei, his whole body trembled along with Han Fei. Little fatty's voice echoed in Han Fei's head. Do you want to kill me? As it spoke, little fatty's tentacles had already latched onto the long snout silver shark's body. Then, Han Fei and many tentacles were trembling and shivering. Han Fei replied, I was afraid that the fish would run away. Little fatty scoffed, You could have summoned that shrimp. Han Fei scoffed. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp can only tie it up. What if the silver shark has other methods? It can't run away now that you've latched onto it. Little fatty really wanted to slap its stupid master to death at this moment. Did you just say that I was electrocuted with you? Was that what a human would do? By the time Ling Yun and the other 2 caught up, Han Fei had been shivering for a long time. When the 3 of them were still more than 500 meters away, Han Fei said telepathically, Don't come any closer. The electric shocks aren't over yet. The 3 of them. Half an hour passed. Han Fei sat on the fishing boat, aching all over, and his body shivered from time to time. Glancing at the ultra-quality spiritual shield that had 2 holes in it, Han Fei pulled out the silver stings in disdain. Then he tossed the shield to Gu Daliang and said, It's yours. Gu Daliang's mouth was wide open. This ultra-quality spiritual weapon is great, but you're giving it to me with 2 holes on it? I have to be able to fix the holes first. Han Fei was quite disgusted by the shield. It had been through a lot with him, and it was time to retire after it was pierced through. As for maintenance, Han Fei was too lazy to use Forge the Universe. Wu Xiaoxiao was still looking at Han Fei weirdly. Captain, so you shot down the long-snout silver shark on your own? That's a long-snout silver shark. The silver stings are the best materials to craft ultra-quality spiritual weapons. The long-snout silver shark has such terrifying electric currents, and you resisted it on your own? Ling Yun and Lung Hui looked at Han Fei as if he were a monster. Although you've lost one supreme-grade spiritual weapon, you've gained 2 or even 3 supreme-grade spiritual weapons all at once. If the long-snout silver shark was used well, it could definitely be made into a couple of ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Yun said, "It's a shame that it's dead. Otherwise, this long-snout silver shark could have been sold for 30,000 points of credit." Lung Hui added, "I always thought that it would be a regular silver shark. I didn't expect that would be a long-snout silver shark." Han Fei looked at the bloody hole on the long-snout silver shark's stomach, which was a sign that its blood had been drained by Little Fatty. He had forgotten to tell Little Fatty to keep him alive. However, Little Fatty sucked the silver shark to death after only 1 moment. Han Fei licked his lips and said, "Cough, cough. Well, I've changed my mind. I haven't eaten exotic creatures yet. Let's do the silver shark tonight." "No." The faces of the 4 people on the boat changed greatly. Wu Xiaoxiao blocked the long-snout silver shark with her petite body. "Sell it for money." Han Fei pushed Wu Xiaoxiao's head away. "Are you only interested in money? Are you idiots? What's your purpose as an investigator?" Yun stared at Han Fei angrily. "To defend the skeleton shore." Han Fei said angrily, "Don't you have any pursuits? For example, getting 3 or 4 stars." Yun did. "Of course we do. Advanced investigators have plenty of time, and their training speed is faster." Han Fei said angrily, "Let me tell you, you're wrong. You want to make money, don't you?" Wu Xiaoxiao nodded. "Yes." Han Fei asked again, "What's the purpose of making money?" Wu Xiaoxiao tilted her head. "To buy equipment and techniques to improve our strength." Han Fei asked again, "Eating the silver shark meat is the fastest way to improve my strength. Why don't you eat it?" "To be honest, I wouldn't take anyone else to eat it. I'm only giving you a share because I'm your captain." Wu Xiaoxiao thought for a long time. "How much strength can you improve by eating the silver shark?" Han Fei grinned and said, "Look, isn't the silver shark sturdy? Is the electric current strong? I bet that eating the silver shark can not only temper one's body, but also increase one's resistance to electric currents." "Daliang, don't you think so? You can temper your body." Gu Daliang swallowed his saliva. "That seems to be the case." Han Fei looked at Wu Xiaoxiao and the rest of them. "Look, only armorists and soul warriors know how to temper their bodies. Yun, you're such a disappointment to me. Why can't you figure out what's going on as a soul warrior?" Yun was dumbfounded. Wu Xiaoxiao was stunned for a long time. "Nonsense. You just want to eat the silver shark." The error-free chapter of Fishing God will be updated on Green Bean. There are no advertisements on this website. Please collect and recommend Green Bean. If you like Fishing God, please collect. Fishing God Green Bean updates the fastest. Chapter 616. That night, Han Fei and the other 4 snuck into the Transverse Mountain to have a hot pot. At this moment, the horn on the 5-meter-long silver shark's head and the sky silver stings on its back had been plucked by Han Fei. Its blue wings had been cut open by Han Fei, and a lot of poison flowed out. The poison sac had also been completely removed by Han Fei. Han Fei didn't try the poison rashly. He planned to go to the island and see if there were any anti-poison fruits on the island during his vacation. He also wanted to learn about the common poisons and anti-poison fruits on the Scattered Stars Island. At this moment, the big fish had been cut in half by Han Fei, and he had to share the other half with Lurin Quang and the others. Han Fei washed the fish meat, and the fish oil in the pot was already boiling. Then, Han Fei threw more than 10 kinds of spiritual fruits into it. In an instant, the intense aroma spread out. Wu Xiaoxiao and the others all swallowed hard. Even Lung Hui, who was the coldest, and Yun, who was the toughest, couldn't help but swallow. Han Fei tossed half of the fish into the sky. As knife light flashed, the fish meat rolled into the pot of oil, and the flames immediately rose dozens of meters high. Han Fei grabbed the pot with one hand and began to stir it. The golden oil was flashing in the flames like dazzling stars. Han Fei grabbed a mass of water from the void and threw it into the pot. A sizzling sound echoed in his ears. The sound was just a sound, but it seemed to have turned into an alluring fragrance for Wu Xiaoxiao and the others. Even their taste buds were opened. Wu Xiao scratched her head and almost wanted to open the pot to see if the fish was cooked. Han Fei grinned. Wait for half an hour. Let the energy disperse in the soup, and let the spiritual energy circulate in the pot. It'll be ready soon. Gudu. Sitting on the ground, Wu Xiao looked up at Han Fei. Captain, just tell us. Who are you exactly? Han Fei. Why should I tell you? Food is just my hobby. Right, let me ask you something. Who wants the horn and the sky's silver stings? Everybody was stunned, and Yun said quickly, You don't want them? You killed it. We don't have the ability to kill a long-snout silver shark. Han Fei grinned. It doesn't matter. When I was cooking just now, I thought about it. Since you guys are going to be my teammates for a while, why don't I increase your combat power now? I can refine this horn and the sky's silver spike into supreme-grade spirit artifacts, and I can even sell them to you on credit. Yes, I'm not giving it to you for free, it's on credit. You'll have to pay me back with points in the future. Lung Hui's eyes flickered. Really? Han Fei smiled. Of course, it's just a few ultra-quality spiritual weapons. I'm not short of money. Yun took a deep breath and glared at Han Fei. Are you not afraid that we will die on the way? Han Fei sneered. According to you, how much does an ultra-quality spiritual weapon cost? Lung Hui blurted out. A supreme-grade spiritual weapon usually costs around 10,000 points. If it has a sealed spirit, I'm afraid it'll cost 30,000 points. Han Fei asked in surprise. So expensive? Sealing a spirit is so expensive? Yun said. That's only the price of sealing a creature below level 40. If the creature is above level 40, the price will skyrocket. Someone once sealed a level 58 exotic creature, and the ultra-quality spiritual weapon was sold for 800,000 points. Wu Xiao nodded quickly. Above level 45, almost every level has a different price. It's very expensive. Gu Daliang nodded. Yes, and the creatures sealed have different prices according to their quality. The exotic ones are particularly expensive. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Suddenly, he had an idea. Why did he think that an ultra-quality spiritual weapon was useless? Was it because the creatures he sealed were too weak? His blue sea wandering dragon daggers all had mess-swallowing worms sealed in them. Therefore, if an ultra-quality spiritual weapon was broken, it might not be because the level of the spiritual weapon was not high enough, but because the sealing effect was different. For a moment, Han Fei's breath became rapid. Damn it, why was he so stupid? Why didn't he try sealing souls on some tough creatures? What if he could seal a powerful ultra-quality spiritual weapon out of them? Then, Han Fei calculated in his heart. It was too easy to make money. An ultra-quality spiritual weapon was sold for 800,000 points. What kind of ultra-quality spiritual weapon was it exactly? Immediately, Han Fei swallowed and looked at them. It's up to you. I'm going to visit my seniors in a few days. What do you want to seal souls with? It would be best if you can catch them. I'll give you a 30% discount. Gu Daliang rose quickly. A 30% discount? Han Fei raised his head and said, Of course. I don't care about the money. No matter what creatures you catch, I'll give you a 30% discount. So who wants them? Lung Hui immediately said, I want the sky's silver stings to be made into a pair of daggers. As for the creatures sealed in them, we still have 2 days to investigate. We'll check them out then. Yun said, I want the horn to be made into a sword. As for the creatures sealed in them, we'll see. Wu Xiao exclaimed, Wow, that's not enough. Han Fei immediately grinned and said, That's fine. You don't have enough materials. I'll give them to you. Don't worry about where I get them. I'll give you the weapons, and you can pay me back slowly. Wu Xiao's eyes glittered. I want an ultra-quality battle suit and the best demon-level art. Han Fei was briefly stunned. A battle suit? The materials of a battle suit are much more than those of a saber or a sword. How are you going to pay me back? Wu Xiao said in a hurry. I'll give them to you. Han Fei said in disdain. Mind your image. I have a girlfriend. Fine, I'll satisfy you. You can pay me back according to your points. Han Fei looked at Gu Daliang, and Gu Daliang said, I want an ultra-quality shield and a one-handed broadsword. Han Fei thought for a moment. Okay, that's not a problem. So, you'll be selling yourselves to me, won't you? I won't give you any more than that. If you die in the ocean and can't pay me back, I'll suffer a great loss." Wu Xiao Xiao and the others didn't care whether or not they owed him money. They were poor anyway. Also, once their equipment was renewed, their combat ability would be greatly increased. By then, it would be much easier for them to get points. While Yuling Yun and the others were delighted, they were also guessing Han Fei's identity. But at this moment, Han Fei's mind was elsewhere. He had to listen to old Bai. He would go to the refining hall and get himself an identity as a refiner on his vacation. Then, he would go to the refining hall and seal souls for other people. Well, sealing souls would be too eye-catching. He would have to refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons for other people. When the conditions were ripe, he would be able to seal souls and make a fortune. Han Fei wondered if he was being too outrageous. He had plenty of materials. He could just ask the demon purification pot to refine them. In fact, the consumption of spiritual energy was only 500,000 points, which could be made up for with 6 or 7 spiritual fruits. Wasn't it a bit outrageous to sell them 10,000 points of points? But on second thought, Han Fei realized that it would be more expensive for them to buy from other people. As the saying went, one should keep the goodies in one's own field. When the time came, he would monopolize the business of the 8th Battalion and let the 300 people think about paying him back every day. It would be like collecting rent every day. Even if each person gave him 100 points a day, he would still have a net income of 30,000 points a day, although occasionally there would be unexpected risks. Generally speaking, it was definitely not a loss. Besides, the cost was so low. He wouldn't be afraid of losing money. Han Fei remembered that there were still 2 big bones, 2 big chains, and the 1,000-meter-long big red trunk in Forge the Universe that he hadn't used yet. Immediately, he felt that they could be put to good use. As for what he could exchange the points for, well, he definitely needed a lot of spirit awakening fluid, anti-poison fruits, and soul crystals. His spiritual power seemed to be stuck. He could take his time. "That's a great deal." Han Fei subconsciously blurted it out. Wu Xiao Xiao was confused. "Captain, what's a great deal?" Han Fei immediately shrank his neck. "Oh no. Well, I mean, you're really a great deal. I really envy you for having such an excellent captain like me." Everyone, Wu Xiao Xiao, and the others were talking to each other telepathically. "Sister Lingyun, do you think geniuses are also different?" Lingyun scoffed. "There are no geniuses in this world. Do you really think the long-snout silver shark is so easy to deal with? Among us, even Daliang wouldn't be able to withstand that electric current." Gu Daliang nodded. "Indeed, our captain's physique is too unbelievable." Lung Hui added, "We have to improve ourselves as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm afraid that Han Fei will be transferred away soon." The moment Lung Hui's words left his mouth, they immediately felt the pressure. Yes, in their eyes, Han Fei was too excellent. Even they found it hard to believe that such a person was chosen as a captain. They felt that it was a great deal. In the next 2 days, Han Fei led them to investigate the skeleton shore. It was indeed quite dangerous, especially in the area 200 kilometers away. During this time, they encountered another strange creature. However, that creature was a long worm, and it slipped away from the ground. However, the creatures sealed in Lingyun's team were all caught. But because the creatures had to be alive, and sea-swallowing seashells couldn't hold living creatures, they were all tied under Han Fei's treehouse. In the dead of night, not a sound could be heard. Han Fei sneakily carried the creatures under the treehouse into the depths of the forest. The error-free chapters of Fishing God will continue to be updated on Green Bean. There are no advertisements on this site. Please collect and recommend Green Bean. If you like Fishing God, please collect. Fishing God Green Bean updates the fastest. Chapter 617. On the first day of his vacation, Han Fei was still sleeping in his treehouse. He refined 5 ultra-quality spiritual weapons last night and sealed souls in them. He toiled for half the night and even practiced the 108 Desolate God Body once before going to bed. After only an hour of sleep, Han Fei was woken up by Wu Xiao Xiao's cute voice. Han Fei heaved a helpless sigh. Some people were born with a lowly voice, but some were born ugly. It was torture. Han Fei had experienced it firsthand. Han Fei craned his head. What are you shouting for? I'm asleep. Wu Xiaoxiao shouted. Captain, it's not good. The sealed creature that we captured was stolen by someone else. Han Fei rubbed his eyes. Stolen? My senior took them away last night and said that the weapons would be delivered in a day or two. Huh? Wu Xiaoxiao's eyes widened. Really? Han Fei said. Why would I lie to you? My senior is a 6-star. Well, he came at midnight. Of course you don't know. At this moment, Yu Lingyun and the other two walked close too. Hearing what Han Fei said, they were all intrigued. 6-star? Did Han Fei really have a senior on the Scattered Stars Island? If he was a 6-star expert, wouldn't he be a hidden fisher? However, Yu Lingyun asked calmly, Captain, are you going to scavenge? Han Fei shook his head and climbed down from the treehouse. No, I have something to do on the island. May I ask where the command room is? The command room? Yu Lingyun instantly thought of something. You're going to find your teammates, aren't you? I want to pick you up the other day. That's the west side of the Scattered Stars city. There are 2 statues of soul warriors more than 50 meters tall, holding long sticks in front of the command room. Han Fei nodded. Where's the logistics division? Gu Daliang immediately said, Everybody knows that. There's a huge ball on the top of the building of the logistics division. When we use our points to exchange for things, we do so there. Han Fei's eyes glittered. Wow, that's awesome. Han Fei was lost for words. This fatty was truly lucky. He wondered if he could ask Lu Rinquang to get in through the back door. Han Fei didn't ask where the Dark Hunter Legion and the Island Patrol team were. I'm afraid it's not fixed. I should find Lu Rinquang and Luo Xiaobai first. Maybe they will know. Han Fei was about to part ways with Yu Lingyun and the others when he suddenly turned around and asked, What about the refining hall? How do I get to the refining hall? Yu Lingyun said, That's even more obvious. On the door of the Hall of Smithing, there was a huge sculpture of a hammer that could be recognized with a single glance. Moreover, the refining hall and the logistics division are quite close to each other, less than 3,000 meters apart. You can see them just by looking up. Han Fei smiled faintly and said, Okay, that's fine. Go scavenge. Don't run inside. At that time, when the positions were arranged, only Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan had 2 days off. Luo Xiaobai and the others all had a day off, so Han Fei wasn't sure if he could find them today. Controlling the fishing boat, Han Fei flew all the way and encountered a few big birds. However, when these birds saw fishing boats from a distance, they would detour, as if they were rather scared of humans. Han Fei didn't intend to explore the transverse mountain now. He had a lot of things to do. About half an hour later, the appearance of the Scattered Stars city appeared in front of his eyes. The flow of people on the street was like that of the CBD business district. The buildings were mostly made of grayish-white stones, and the sculptures of seaweeds, fish, and insects could be seen everywhere. Han Fei always saw people walking on the road, carrying big fish and big crabs. They were all heading for the refining hall. Needless to say, they were carrying living creatures to the refining hall to seal souls. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Sealing souls was really a good skill. Han Fei's fishing boat landed at a low altitude, and he had already landed at the gate of the logistics division. The logistics division occupied a very large area, with a length and width of 10,000 meters. The shape of the building was arc-shaped, with a huge ball on top of the building, which was very easy to recognize. Han Fei walked in from the luxurious gate, only to find that it was overcrowded. The lobby was like a large square, with 2 open doors on the left and right sides. However, outsiders didn't seem to be allowed to enter. He only saw some people constantly transporting things inside, and no one except the staff went in. The only thing left was an extra-large curve counter. Han Fei looked at the number on the counter, and the largest number was already 500. This meant that there were an average of 500 counters in this place for people to exchange materials. Han Fei glanced at his waist tag, only to find that it was blank. As a 0, it would be a bit too embarrassing to go to the counter. So, Han Fei grabbed the waist tag and shouted to Lu Rinquang's aura. Lu Rinquang, are you there? Are you there? The next second, he heard Lu Rinquang's response. I'm here, but I'm at work. I'm too busy to spare time. You stay here and contact Xiaobai to see if she is available. The waist tag seemed to emit a resonance, and the voice could fall directly in his head. Seeing that Lu Kwang was busy, Han Fei asked, "Then are you off tomorrow?" Lu Kwang responded, "Yes, I'm free tomorrow. Don't you have 2 days off? Stay in the city tonight and find a place to stay. Next door, near the lake, there are several rows of carnival clubs. You can stay there." Han Fei was about to respond when he heard Lu Kwang say again, "Forget it. You'd better not live there. If Xia Xiaochan finds out, she'll kill me." Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, why would she kill you? Lu Kwang replied, "There are a lot of girls there." Han Fei was speechless. Was there a place in the Scattered Stars city that blatantly engaged in sexual activities? Han Fei said angrily, "Fine, continue with your work. I'll contact Xiaobai." Lu Kwang nodded. "Okay." Because the tactical command center was not far from here, Han Fei saw the 2 statues just now. So, standing in the hall of the logistics division, Han Fei directly contacted them. Xiaobai, are you there?" However, there was no response. Han Fei called her twice, but there was still no response. Immediately, Han Fei knew that Luo Xiaobai must have gone to investigate around the island and should not be here. After all, this method of contact had a distance limit, unlike the mobile phones in his previous life. He tried to call Zhang Xuanyu and Xia Xiaochan again, but neither of them was there. This made him a little embarrassed. The only one here was still busy. Where could he go? Han Fei thought for a moment. Well, let's go to the refining hall and see what's going on there. Before coming to the Scattered Stars Island, Olbai had already given Han Fei a refining book. However, that book seemed to be the basic knowledge of refining, which described how to refine in general, how to quench different materials, how to use spiritual energy, whether to use open fire, and so on. As for the true method of refining tools, it was not recorded in that ancient book of refining tools. Obviously, Olbai wanted Han Fei to come to the Scattered Stars Island and look for it himself, where the Thug Academy didn't have such books at all. The refining hall was much larger than Han Fei had imagined. It was about half the size of the logistics division. As soon as Han Fei stepped into the refining hall, he felt a wave of heat surging towards him. That was the residual heat of high-temperature forging. Although there were many people who came to the refining hall, there were much fewer than those who went to the logistics division. Although the hall here was also very large, there were only 100 counters. However, in the center of the lobby of the refining hall, there was a row of round counters, on which was written Shopping Guide. As the name suggested, a shopping guide was to take you shopping. Han Fei immediately understood. What weapons ordinary people needed, they couldn't find so quickly in such a large refining hall. Then, if he found a shopping guide, he could quickly and accurately find where he needed to go to forge. That should be the reason. So, Han Fei immediately walked forward. Seeing Han Fei looking at her, a girl immediately stood up. Her eyes fell directly on Han Fei's waist tag, and then she said with a smile, "Excuse me, do you need a shopping guide?" Han Fei also glanced at the girl's waist tag. 2 stars. Is she here to be a shopping guide? Han Fei said, "This is my first time here. Can you introduce me?" The girl immediately walked out of the counter and came to Han Fei. 10 points or 10 high-quality pearls, and I can talk to you for half an hour. Han Fei flipped his hand, took out 10 high-quality pearls, and handed them over. The girl said with a smile, "Do you want to ask yourself, or do you want me to tell you from the beginning?" Han Fei thought for a moment. "I'll ask myself. If I want to become a refiner, do I have to take the test for a refiner certificate?" First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 618. The girl looked at Han Fei up and down and then nodded. Yes, there are 5 levels of refiners, from 1 star to 5 star. Of course, below 1 star refiners, there are also apprentice refiners. However, apprentice refiners can only forge weapons like magic weapons at most, and they will eventually be sent to the 36 towns. As for 1-star blacksmiths, they were already capable of forging low-tier and middle-tier spirit artifacts. Even the most formidable 1-star blacksmiths have a certain chance of forging a high-tier spirit artifact. Han Fei interrupted. Wait a minute. Then if I want to be tested, do I have to start from an apprentice refiner? The girl shook her head. No. If you have the foundation, you only need to pay an assessment fee and you can be tested immediately. However, you have to forge a low-quality spiritual weapon, a mid-quality spiritual weapon, a high-quality spiritual weapon, and so on. Han Fei grinned. Got it. Go on. The girl said, starting from a 2-star refiner, the success rate of forging high-quality spiritual weapons is as high as 70%. The success rate of forging ultra-quality spiritual weapons can be as high as 50%. The basic condition of a 3-star refiner is to be able to seal spirits. Creatures below level 30 are enough, and the success rate needs to be 50%. And the success rate of forging ultra-quality spiritual weapons must be no less than 50%. Otherwise, you will be demoted. A 4-star refiner's success rate of forging ultra-quality spiritual weapons must be no less than 70%, and the success rate of sealing creatures above level 40 must be no less than 60%. Otherwise, you will be demoted. A 5-star refiner's success rate of forging ultra-quality spiritual weapons must be no less than 90%. The success rate of sealing creatures below level 50 must be no less than 70%. If you fail 3 times, you have to complete the spirit for free. From level 50 to level 60, the success rate is more than 30%. If you fail 10 times, you have to complete the spirit for free. After hearing the girl's words, Han Fei looked weird. Doesn't that mean that I'm already a 5-star blacksmith right now? However, that was all thanks to the demon purification pot. All he needed to do was to throw materials into the demon purification pot. As for real refining, he didn't know anything about it now. The reason why Olbai asked him to learn refining was that he wanted him to cover up this point. Han Fei immediately said, "Can I visit the refining scene in the refining hall first?" The girl was slightly taken aback. If you want to learn armament refining, this place also accepts armament refining apprentices. Not only can you visit, but you can also get paid. Han Fei shook his head. I don't have time for that. I need to visit first and then make a decision. The young lady replied, Of course. However, 3-star and above blacksmiths are generally not allowed to watch while they are forging, unless they make an appointment in advance. Therefore, you can only watch apprentice craftsmen and level 1 and level 2 craftsmen, and the fees are different. It only costs 10 high-quality pearls to visit an apprentice refiner. It costs 50 high-quality pearls to visit a 1-star refiner. It costs 500 high-quality pearls to visit a 2-star refiner. Han Fei thought for a moment. Show me around each of the 3 levels. I have the money. After that, Han Fei took out a fish skin bag of high-quality pearls and gave them to the girl. Count it. Clearly, the price of a 2-star blacksmith would skyrocket. Most likely, the price of a 3-star weaponsmith would be even higher. Han Fei didn't intend to waste his money. He only needed to see how normal people refined. What was the process? What kind of equipment was needed? Then, Han Fei would decide how he should master this refining skill. After all, refining was also a skill, and the demon purification pot could probably deduce it too. After following the salesperson through the front hall, Han Fei immediately felt violent spiritual energy blowing in his face. The entire inner hall was hot, and the temperature was dozens of degrees higher than outside. But surprisingly, Han Fei didn't hear the sound of hammers. There was nothing but silence here, and only violent spiritual energy was surging. In Han Fei's sight, there were rows of black stone houses. On the door of each house, there was a misty cyclone door. Han Fei couldn't see through these cyclones with the naked eye. Han Fei was stunned. Are all refining rooms here? The salesperson smiled and said, There are 1,082 refining rooms in the refining hall. Of them, 800 are spiritual energy refining rooms, and the remaining 282 are taken from hot magma, undersea lava, and heavenly fire. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Is there any difference between the two? The salesperson said, Using spiritual energy to directly forge weapons is the mainstream and the easiest refining method. Flames are not needed, and only violent spiritual energy is used as flames for hammering and forging. As for those who use heavenly flame and underwater magma, it is usually the process of changing to a higher level of refining techniques after discovering that there are many deficiencies in the forging of spirit artifacts. Han Fei thought of something. Give me one more. After I see the refining methods with spiritual energy, I want to see how heavenly fire and magma are forged. The salesperson said awkwardly, that may take a while because there are very few 2-star refiners in these 282 refining rooms, so you may need to make an appointment. Han Fei said, then I'll make an appointment. The salesperson communicated with someone for a while with her Starways tag. After a while, she looked at Han Fei and said, refining room no. 821 will start refining in 3 hours. It's a 3-star refiner. However, if you want to watch him refine weapons, you'll need 5,000 high-quality pearls. Han Fei immediately frowned. 5,000 high-quality pearls? That's 5,000 points. I'm just going to take a look. Is it so expensive? The salesperson explained, because 3-star refiners are all refiners who practice advanced refining techniques. Their techniques are also very precious. Therefore, it's often more expensive to watch than to buy. Han Fei gritted his teeth. He couldn't catch a wolf without risking his life. If he wanted to learn refining techniques, he had to understand them clearly before he made a choice. So, Han Fei gave the salesperson 5,000 high-quality pearls on the spot. The salesperson was stunned and thought to herself, this guy only has 3 stars. Why is he so generous? After receiving the money, the salesperson immediately showed Han Fei the room. The first one to go was naturally the armament apprentice, which was also the apprentice armament master. When Han Fei just entered the refining room, he saw a young man about his age at first glance. However, his waist tag had 3 stars, which was the same level as Han Fei. This person even grinned at Han Fei when he saw him. The young man said, I guess you want to learn refining. I only know some basic refining techniques. I have nothing to hide. Let me get ready. I'll start refining in 100 seconds. Han Fei smiled and said, suit yourself. Good luck. Han Fei looked around the so-called spiritual energy refining room. The whole room was not big, only about 30 square meters. There were many weapons hanging on the walls of the room. From knives and swords, to axes, to sticks, hooks, and chains, there were more than 40 weapons. However, among these weapons, only one was a low-quality spiritual weapon, and the others were high-quality magic weapons. In the center of the room was a large stone platform, on which were placed iron bark, some magic weapon quality bamboo poles, stones, crystals, fish skin, fish bones, black iron, and other materials. On both sides of the large stone platform was a vat of spiritual spring. When he saw the spiritual spring, Han Fei couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, and he realized that learning refining seemed to burn a lot of spiritual energy. The young man said, to learn the basic refining method of spiritual energy, you need to learn a basic refining technique called the spirit fusing technique. It can melt spiritual energy and make it violent, achieving the effect of flames. The young man didn't use a hammer. He grabbed a piece of black iron, wrapped it in spiritual energy, and suspended it in the air. Han Fei felt that the spiritual energy wrapped around the black iron was gradually becoming violet. The temperature of the spiritual energy was rising. In Han Fei's eyes, spiritual energy spots were shattering and then seeping into this piece of black iron. The young man shouted, this is the spirit fusing technique. Melt spiritual energy and melt materials. The black iron was melting. However, the black iron didn't become smaller. There was not the slightest bit of the effect of taking the essence and discarding the dross. The young man used the same technique to melt 5 materials. Then, the young man suddenly took a deep breath, and the spiritual energy wrapped around the materials became more and more violent. In the end, the spiritual energy even showed signs of changing color. In the next moment, Han Fei saw a large amount of dross burst out of the materials along with the violent spiritual energy. The young man shouted, this is the spirit polishing technique, which can remove the impurities of the materials themselves. However, it can't completely remove them. After about 2 minutes, most of the materials were gone, following which a violent surge of spiritual energy enveloped the 5 materials and mixed them together. Under the guidance of a young man's spiritual energy, the shape of a long sword had already appeared. The young man shouted again, "Next is the spirit refining technique." The characteristics of the materials themselves are not compatible. If you want to completely fuse them, you have to increase the violence of the spiritual energy to the point where you can temper the 5 materials at the same time. Han Fei didn't say a word from beginning to end. He just watched the materials that were a little out of place gradually fuse. After about 3 minutes, a high-quality magic weapon had already appeared. When the youngster gradually extracted the berserk spiritual chi, a high-grade magic treasure was completed with a loud bang. However, Han Fei clearly felt that although this sword had reached the level of a high-quality magic weapon, the blade didn't seem to be perfect, mainly because it didn't look very sharp. The young man grabbed the long sword and looked at Han Fei with a smile. "This is the most elementary refining technique." Han Fei cupped his fists. "Thank you. I have 2 questions. First, you swallowed 3 spiritual springs this time. How much spiritual energy did you consume? Also, refining seems to have a high requirement on spiritual power. How many times can you refine a day?" The young man smiled awkwardly. "I consumed 18,000 points of spiritual energy. With my current spiritual power, I can only forge 8 of these weapons a day." Han Fei grinned. "Thank you." After reading it, Han Fei left. There was only one word in his mind. Simple. Second update. Please vote. End of chapter. Chapter 619. The whole refining process lasted about 5 minutes, which was a little less than half an hour. Han Fei didn't stop at all and followed the shop assistant to the next place, the 1-star refining room. The refining room was also not big, and the treatment was similar to that of the apprentice refiner. The refiner himself was 2 or 3 years older than the apprentice refiner. It seemed that he was also a little more arrogant. However, since the apprentice had spent the money, the refiner didn't say that he was stingy. After all, there wasn't a big difference between a 1-star and an apprentice. The man looked at Han Fei. "I know you just went to the apprentice refiner's place. In fact, my refining process is no different from his. It's just that I'm more familiar with the spirit fusing technique, the spirit polishing technique, and the spirit refining technique. I won't tell you the process. You can watch it yourself." The 1-star refiner clapped his hand on the table, and the 8 materials flew up at the same time and were enveloped by a ball of spiritual energy. In the next moment, with the technique of the 1-star refiner, it only took less than 5 minutes for the materials to be completely melted. Then, it was the spirit polishing technique. This time, Han Fei clearly felt that it was different. When the materials were quenched, the spiritual energy seemed to have some kind of neutralization reaction with the materials, causing the colorless spiritual energy to become colored. This was quite obvious. In this step of quenching, the 1-star refiner was obviously much better than the experienced refiner, and it took him about 500 minutes to quench the materials. Han Fei clearly felt that the refined materials were very pure and seemed to have stimulated the characteristics of the materials. In the last step of the spirit refining technique, the 8 balls of materials were first mixed together like gurgling chemical materials and then rushed left and right. After such a change for more than 5 minutes, a low-quality long knife of spiritual energy appeared. Han Fei didn't say a word from beginning to end. He only thanked the man after he finished refining and turned around to leave. After observing it twice, Han Fei put on a smile. The method of refining with spiritual energy was simple. This was the second time that Han Fei had come to this conclusion. When he entered the refining room of the 2-star refiner, the shop assistant said, "2-star refiners are the backbone of the refining hall. They refine a lot of weapons every day, so they may have a bad temper." Han Fei grinned. "It's okay. I won't talk." After entering the refining room, Han Fei noticed that the room seemed to be bigger than before. It was nearly 50 square meters. In this refining room, there were basically not many middle-grade and low-grade spiritual weapons. Most of them were high-grade and supreme-grade spiritual weapons. On the other hand, this 2-star blacksmith seemed to be in his 20s and he actually possessed a 5-star emblem. In the blink of an eye, his rank was already significantly higher than that of a 1-star blacksmith. When Han Fei entered, the man was in the middle of spirit polishing. He glanced at Han Fei casually and said, "Watch yourself. Don't disturb me." Han Fei did not speak. The higher the level of a professional technician, the bigger their temper. This was a given, no matter where they were. This person's spirit tempering art was obviously much more advanced than the 1-star blacksmith's spirit tempering art. The spiritual energy seemed to have been ignited. All kinds of impurities, like sweat, were expelled from the spiritual energy mass. The materials refined by this person were still emitting a faint luster. From a piece of mystic crystal, Han Fei felt the golden heptachi, and from a piece of fishbone, he felt a trace of flexibility in it. In Han Fei's eyes, the violent spiritual energy was not dispersed, but surrounded the material in a spiral or even a repulsive magnetic field. The spirit polishing here seemed to have reached the last stage. After only 100 seconds, it was time for spirit polishing. This time, the result was different from the previous 2 times. This person was forging an axe. The handle, grip, and blade of the axe were designed. Judging from the structure of the weapon, it was of a higher level. As for the materials, they were first fused and then interactively glued together. Han Fei realized that a 2-star blacksmith was much better at details than a 1-star blacksmith. No wonder the price was 10 times higher. Just based on these 3 different experiences, the price was worth it. If a 3-star blacksmith was willing to show it to others, Han Fei felt that he could watch it all the way to a 5-star blacksmith. That way, he would be more inspired. In the end, this person refined a high-quality spiritual weapon. After this person was done, Han Fei said, "Thank you. I have 2 questions. How much spiritual energy did you consume? How many high-quality spiritual weapons can you refine in a day?" The person said impatiently, 80,000 points of spiritual energy, 7 times a day. Seeing this person sit on his futon, Han Fei smiled and left. Han Fei thought that it would cost about 50,000 points of spiritual energy to refine a high-quality spiritual weapon with a demon purification pot. And this person consumed 80,000 points of spiritual energy to refine a high-quality spiritual weapon. So, theoretically speaking, a 3-star blacksmith should be able to significantly reduce this number. After leaving the refining room, Han Fei was even more confident. He couldn't help but say to the shopping guide, "Let's go." Next, the shopping guide said, "The 3-star blacksmith hasn't started yet. It may take more than an hour." Han Fei paused and suddenly asked, "Are there few blacksmiths in the refining hall?" The shopping guide shook her head and said, "Actually, there are quite a few. At present, the number of certified blacksmiths has exceeded 100,000. Among them, 40,000 are 1-star blacksmiths, 40,000 are 2-star blacksmiths, more than 18,000 are 3-star blacksmiths, and more than 1,900 are 4-star blacksmiths." Wait, Han Fei was stunned. "So, according to you, there are only about 100 5-star blacksmiths?" The shopping guide said, "To be exact, there are 82 blacksmiths. Every 5-star blacksmith has their own exclusive refining room. Even if they don't come, they won't allow others to enter their refining rooms." Han Fei asked in surprise, "The treatment is so high? 82 people, 82 smithing workshops. Could it be that for every 5-star blacksmith, there will be an additional smithing workshop?" The shopping guide nodded and said, "Of course. 5-star blacksmiths are extremely rare. To become a 5-star blacksmith, it's not as simple as refining ultra-quality spiritual weapons and sealing souls. Almost all 5-star blacksmiths are studying the techniques to refine divine weapons with ultra-quality materials. Among them, there are many who have already refined a half-step divine weapon." "Divine weapons?" Han Fei immediately exclaimed, causing many passers-by to look at him strangely. Han Fei swallowed and asked, "What is a half-divine weapon?" The shopping guide shrugged. "I don't know. I've never seen one. There are few people on the Scattered Stars Island who can use weapons of that level. However, I'm told that they are much more powerful than ultra-quality spiritual weapons." Han Fei didn't think it was difficult to refine divine weapons. He felt that as long as the materials were of a high enough level, the demon purification pot would be able to refine divine weapons. The question now was, how long would it take for him to improve his level as a blacksmith? How many stars should he upgrade to? For now, 3-star blacksmiths should be the pillars of the refining hall. 4-star and 5-star blacksmiths probably wouldn't be willing to refine weapons for ordinary people. Seeing that it would take a long time for the 3-star blacksmith to start, Han Fei asked, "Does the refining hall have to be used by blacksmiths? Or can it only be used by apprentice blacksmiths?" The shopping guide said, "Of course not. The refining hall is open to the public. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 100,000 blacksmiths. You can pay different prices according to the size of the room. Every artifact forging room is equipped with a soundproof array." Han Fei thought of something. How much does a small room for apprentice blacksmiths cost per day? The shopping guide said with a smile, "It's cheap. It only costs 500 points of credit or high-quality pearls per day. If you don't want to pay, you can be an apprentice." Although some apprentices rented their own rooms, they would only rent them when they needed it. Generally speaking, they learned from 1-star or 2-star blacksmiths. Han Fei immediately said, "I want to rent one for a day." The shopping guide grinned and thought to herself, "I made a lot of money today. I can get a commission, which is more than what I can earn by scavenging from the sea." After the shopping guide communicated for a while, someone soon delivered a room token. The shopping guide said, "Refining room number 198. Someone will come to inform you in a day. If you want to renew the lease, just pay the money. If you want to leave early, just return the token to the window. However, the room is not refundable until you use it for a day." Han Fei didn't care. Money. I have plenty of it. Inside the refining hall, there were also quite a few shops where weapons refiners put up for sale. According to the shopping guide, the price was about the same as that of the logistics division. However, there were often blacksmiths in the refining hall who sold the weapons they refined at a low price just to improve their skills. Therefore, there were many people who came to the refining hall. After walking around, Han Fei didn't find anything special. The shopping guide suddenly received a message that the 3-star blacksmith was ready to start refining, so she led Han Fei there. The third update. The latest update is about the same as yesterday. A little later tonight, from 7:30 to 8 o'clock, I'm going to cook. Also, I'm trying to enrich this worldview and the social structure of the Scattered Stars Island, hoping to make people feel more immersed in it. I'm going to pretend to be into this chapter. Chapter 620. The refining room of a 3-star refiner was somewhat similar to that of a traditional refining room. The room that Han Fei came to was about 100 square meters. All kinds of weapons were hung on the walls on both sides, most of which were ultra-quality spiritual weapons. There was not a single high-quality spiritual weapon. They were probably too embarrassed to hang them outside. There was a huge furnace in the room, but it was quite different from the furnace in a traditional blacksmith's workshop. This furnace was more like a hollowed alchemy furnace, about 5 meters high. The hollowed area in the middle was about 3 meters high. Below, it was lava, and above it seemed to be a spiritual spring. The upper and lower parts were supported by thin pillars at the edge. On this refining furnace, there were 3 crystal tables, which seemed to be reserved for blacksmithing. The 3-star refiner that Han Fei saw was a middle-aged brawny man who looked at least 30 years old. His eyebrows were full of killing intent, as if he had just returned from battle. His 6-star rank already showed that his status was definitely not low. He was already at the same level as senior brother Da Shui. Han Fei didn't expect that he would let him in for 5,000 high-quality pearls. Beside him, there were 2 4-star refiners. Han Fei didn't know how many stars these 2 were. However, both of them looked about 20 years old. Anyway, they couldn't be apprentice refiners. The middle-aged, brawny man glanced at Han Fei indifferently. "So you want to observe my refining method?" Han Fei smiled. "Yes, I'm going to learn the refining method first before deciding whether to learn refining." The middle-aged, brawny man sneered. "Then how do you feel after watching the refining method with spiritual energy?" Han Fei was still smiling. "It doesn't seem to be very difficult." "Oh." The middle-aged, brawny man looked at Han Fei. "You're bragging. You're willing to spend 5,000 high-quality pearls just to observe refining once. You're quite courageous, since you think the refining method with spiritual energy is not difficult. Let's see the normal refining method. The middle-aged brawny man no longer looked at Han Fei, and the two assistants next to him looked at Han Fei with disdain. In their opinion, a person who couldn't even be called an apprentice came to watch a 3-star refiner refine a weapon. Except for remembering the process, he probably couldn't understand anything else. Han Fei saw a large pile of materials placed on 2 crystal tables. The middle-aged man said stiffly, "There is no material in this world that cannot be fused. The technique depends on the amount of spiritual energy, the strength of the spirit fusion, the strength of the hammer, and the method of fusion. Watch carefully." The middle-aged man threw a piece of purple ore into the middle of the crafting furnace. With the activation of his spiritual chi, the flames under the crafting furnace entered the pillar and suddenly filled the entire empty space in the middle. Intense flames shot out, and the 2 4-star assistant refiners took a step back, their expressions extremely focused. Han Fei stood 5 meters away and didn't move. Even though the flames had hit his face, Han Fei didn't move at all. This caused the middle-aged man to be slightly surprised, but he didn't take it seriously. A red light flashed in Han Fei's eyes, and he could clearly see that the purple ore was melting in the intense flames. However, every time the purple ore was about to completely melt, the flame would suddenly weaken a little, causing the ore to be on the verge of melting. This was extremely inconspicuous, but Han Fei noticed it. Since his eyelids were burned away in the abyssal chasm last time, Han Fei felt that his eyes seemed to be a little different. It wasn't until this moment that he could clearly feel the melting state of the ore, see the strength of the flames, and even see that the ore's core was slightly softening. After the flame lasted for 49 seconds, it suddenly disappeared. The half-melted purple ore was quickly hardening, and the middle-aged man had already prepared the sledgehammer. Clang, clang, clang. The middle-aged man raised the sledgehammer and hammered 368 times in a row. Every time, Han Fei could see a large number of impurities being removed. Both the sledgehammer and the ore were covered with spiritual energy. After a round of hammering, the size of the purple ore was reduced by half. Immediately afterward, the middle-aged man repeated the previous operation and said to the 2 refiners, "The first round of polishing must be suppressed within 50 seconds. After 50 seconds, the material will harden, and then the material itself will be damaged." After 3 times in a row, less than 1/3 of the huge ore was left. In the last time, the middle-aged man directly grabbed the ore with a big hand of spiritual energy, squeezed the ore into a long strip, and immediately washed it with spiritual spring. Immediately afterward, the middle-aged man smelted 12 kinds of materials, each of which was refined into an embryo. The middle-aged man said, "These are all simple. The problem is the method of fusion." The middle-aged man glanced at Han Fei, only to find that Han Fei's eyes were dull. He immediately showed a touch of disappointment and thought to himself, "You don't understand, do you? How dare you brag to me?" The middle-aged man said, "This step also requires the spirit refining technique, but in addition to the spirit refining technique, you also need flames, temperature, and instant replenishment of spiritual energy. Don't be fooled by the fact that they're all supreme-grade spirit artifacts that achieve similar effects. However, the details are the key to whether or not you can improve further." For a moment, the 2 assistants dared not move their eyes at all. They all looked at the output of spiritual energy in the middle-aged man's hands and the degree of heat in the furnace. When an ultra-quality spiritual weapon was forged, Han Fei's eyes slightly lit up. The sharpness and symmetry seemed to have a touch of heaviness. Han Fei's eyes flashed, and he thought to himself, "I've memorized it, but the problem is the control of strength, heat, time, and the last step of refining the spiritual energy and flames alternately." After that, the middle-aged man looked at Han Fei. "Have you understood it?" Han Fei slightly grinned. "Yes." The 2 assistant refiners' teeth were all twisted. "None of us had any enlightenment, but you did?" The middle-aged man was also taken aback. Originally, he had a good first impression of Han Fei. But if you don't understand it, you don't understand it. Did you think I didn't see it? His intention to give Han Fei some guidance was immediately weakened. The middle-aged man waved his hand. You're done. It's time to go. Han Fei cupped his hands. Thank you. After he left the refiner, Han Fei looked at the shopping guide waiting outside and said, I want to buy the spirit fusing technique, the spirit polishing technique, and the spirit refining technique. Oh, right. Do you have the outline of a 3-star blacksmith or any other stuff like that? The shopping guide was instantly delighted. Yes, all of them. These 3 basic refining techniques are very cheap, and almost all of them are free. Soon, the shopping guide took Han Fei to a room that specialized in selling refining classics. She pointed at the row of jade slips and said, the prices are clearly marked here. The basic refining techniques can be bought for only 1,000 high-quality pearls. Han Fei was stunned. So cheap? The shopping guide explained, the Scattered Stars Island encourages everyone to learn refining. Because spiritual weapons are too common to be damaged, a large number of spiritual weapons are needed every day. Besides, the weapons produced on the Scattered Stars Island are sold to the 1,000-star city and the 36 towns. The number of weapons that are needed is endless. Therefore, the supply of spiritual weapons in our refining hall cannot meet the demand. Even the weapons refined by the apprentice refiners have to be supplied as soon as possible. Han Fei was lost for words. Then how can this refining hall be enough? The shopping guide exclaimed in surprise. Huh, don't you know? There are 5 refining halls on the Scattered Stars Island. Just like the cities on the Scattered Stars Island, there are 5 small cities in total. This is the West City. Han Fei raised his eyebrows. Really? Han Fei immediately blushed. I've only been here for a few days, so I don't know much. Wait a moment. Let me choose. Han Fei grabbed the 3 basic refining methods and browsed through them one by one. Suddenly, he saw a compendium of refining experience written by a 5-star refiner. Seeing the price, which was only 5,000, he immediately picked it up. When Han Fei was choosing, someone beside him couldn't help but laugh. He turned his head, only to see a little girl with 2 pigtails looking at him with a smile. She had 2 small dimples, which looked quite beautiful. Her face was fair and clean, and her 2 big eyes seemed to be innocent, but were actually very cunning. She didn't seem to be as old as Han Fei. The little girl said, How dare you take something written by a 5-star refiner? You can't understand it all. Han Fei nodded. There will be a day when I can understand it. The little girl randomly picked 2 books and said, This is Quick Guide for New Refiners written by Mu Jia, a 3-star genius refiner, and this is Wildfire Practical Record by Guanxin Yin, a 3-star genius refiner. They're the most suitable for you. You can put down a 5-star one. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Genius refiner? How genius is she? The little girl tilted her head and said, Well, Mu Jia only took half a year to promote from an apprentice refiner to a 3-star refiner. Guanxin Yin took a little less, 5 months. Anyway, they're all geniuses. Han Fei thought, does it take so long? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Then who are you? The little girl opened her mouth and giggled. Mu Jia. Han Fei, 4,100 votes, added should be a little more than 10 points. I thought about it. That's not right. I can't rush the progress. Even if I want to speed up, I need to maintain a steady pace. Only when I'm writing do I realize that I'll have to delay a few chapters. Don't worry. The book isn't written in one go. Haste makes waste. Yeah. End of this chapter. Chapter 6:21. Han Fei lowered his head and glanced at Mu Jia's waist tag. Oh my god, a 5-star waist tag. Is this girl a devil? Han Fei put down the 5-star refiner's book indifferently and accepted Mu Jia's quick guide for refiners for beginners. It was just 3,000 high-quality pearls, so Han Fei didn't care at all. Han Fei glanced at it and then looked at Mu Jia. Are you really a 3-star refiner? Mu Jia's little face turned serious, and with a swish, a token appeared in her hand, and she threw it to Han Fei. On one side was refining, on the other side was mujia, and below was 3 stars. Han Fei shrugged and handed back the token. Is this the 3-star certificate? Mujia screamed. Don't you believe it? Han Fei glanced at her. Junior Hanging Fisher, 5-star star. I guess you didn't get it by fighting, but by refining. Okay, I guess you're a genius. However, this genius, I'm going to get busy. Bye-bye. Mujia was dumbfounded. I'm a genius. How can you not suck up to me? Before Han Fei took 2 steps, the girl opened her arms and blocked in front of Han Fei. You are too rude. My realm is higher than yours. My star rank is higher than yours. And my refining talent is higher than yours. Why don't you suck up to me? If you suck up to me, I may accept you as an apprentice. Han Fei rolled his eyes and touched her forehead. You don't have a fever? So what if your realm is higher than mine? You may not be able to beat me. You have a higher star rank than me. Can you eat me? As for refining talent, what if I am better than you? Impossible. I rank 2nd in the promotion record of the refiners on the Scattered Stars Island. Han Fei chuckled. That's why you were 2nd. Who is 1st? The girl didn't know what 2nd meant. However, it didn't sound like a good thing. Han Fei seemed to be looking down on her, so she immediately shouted, Only Guan Qinyan is 1 month faster than me. I will definitely surpass him when I become a 4-star refiner. Han Fei nodded and said, Okay, come on, work hard, but I have to go. Bye, genius. Pooh, Mujia was left alone. He was kind enough to guide him, but he didn't appreciate it. Other people weren't like that. Surely, he didn't know how many people wanted to become his apprentice. No, I have to show him a thing or two. Where is he? Mujia came back to her senses and found that Han Fei was gone. She stomped her feet in anger. Damn, bastard, don't let me see you again. Otherwise, I will definitely let you know what is called a genius in refining. Han Fei paid the attendant a service fee and went straight to his room 198. His first glance was not at the 2 books that Mujia had chosen for him, but at the 3 basic refining techniques. A moment later, information appeared in his mind. Spirit Fusing Technique, Demon Level, High Quality. Note, this is a refining method that uses spirit chi to refine all living things. It has different effects in the hands of different people. Deduced Art, Spirit Fusing Scripture Completion Rate. 0. 5 million. When Han Fei saw the words Demon Level, High Quality, he knew that the refining hall was really short of people. Otherwise, how could a demon-level, high-quality refining technique be sold for only 1,000 high-quality pearls? Han Fei was not bragging. If he sold it to Senior Uncle Faceless, he could definitely get 100 times the price. However, it was a good thing that it was cheap. The more the refining hall did this, the more refiners they were short of. As long as he became a 3-star refiner, he would definitely make a fortune when he started refining. Han Fei deduced the spirit fusing technique without any hesitation. Since he had the conditions, even if he couldn't stand at the other person's endpoint, he had to stand at the other person's midpoint. To put it nicely, he had to stand on the shoulders of the giants. A moment later, the 3 refining techniques were all deduced. Spirit Fusing Scripture, Heaven Level, Low Quality. Note, this is a refining technique that uses spirit chi to refine all living things. It can derive all kinds of flames. It has different effects in the hands of different people. Deduced Art, Spiritual Fire, Variation Completion Rate. 0. 5 million. Spirit Polishing Scripture, Heaven Level, Low Quality. Note, refines the essence of all living things and combines 49 kinds of spiritual energy tempering methods. It can have different effects in the hands of different people. Deduced Art, Spirit Polishing Technique Completion Rate. 0. 5 million. Spirit Polishing Scripture, Heaven Level, Low Quality. Note, refines the essence of all living things and combines it with spiritual energy. It can have different effects in the hands of different people. Deduced Art, Heaven Level Melting Technique Completion Rate. 0. 5 million. Han Fei didn't continue to deduce. He had long discovered a problem, which was that the so-called cultivation techniques and combat techniques needed to be deduced at the right time. Just like the million knife art, If he had deduced the million knives in one from the very beginning, he probably wouldn't have been able to use it at all. Just like that, Han Fei stayed in the refining room for about 6 hours before he finished reading the contents of the 3 books. In an instant, Han Fei took out a crab and a mess of stones, which were all ordinary objects that he threw and forged the universe. Okay, let's try refining a magic weapon first. Let's start with the simple ones. Han Fei tore open a piece of crab shell with one hand. At the same time, 3 mystic stones, a fish skin, and a bamboo were rolled up in the air by spiritual energy. Han Fei's eyes glowed. With the eyes of true vision, he could clearly see the movement of spiritual energy. At this moment, all the spiritual energy had collapsed and penetrated straight into these materials. After 5 minutes, the smelting was completed. Han Fei wondered, it seems a bit fast. Did I make a mistake? Forget it. Let's do the next step. As the spiritual energy vibrated and squeezed, layers of impurities were removed. Han Fei sensed that if he continued, these materials would be gone, so he immediately stopped. Wait, it's done in 5 minutes. Did I use too much strength? Forget it. Let's not care about it for now. Let's combine it first. With a thought from Han Fei, spiritual energy began to gather and directly surrounded the materials. However, it was still 5 minutes. When the long knife in front of him was refined, Han Fei glanced at it. Pincer knife, low-quality magic weapon. Introduction. The pincer of the red-haired big-mouth crab is the main body, with green crystals, dragon-headed fish bones, and devouring horns. Smelted. Remark. Too many materials are removed, making the blade too brittle. The refined spiritual energy is uneven, making it easy to break. Han Fei blushed. It's just a low-quality knife. I'm standing on the shoulder of a giant. And you're making a low-grade toy? Throw it away. Throw it away. After 5 minutes, another saber was forged. Pincer knife, low-quality magic weapon. Introduction. The pincer of the red-haired big-mouth crab is the main body, with green crystals, dragon-headed fish bones, and devouring horns. Smelted. Remark. Too little essence is extracted, making the blade not very tough. Too much spiritual energy is refined, making it difficult to conduct spiritual energy. No, throw it away. Let's do it again. Half an hour later, Han Fei had thrown 10 pincer knives under his feet, 7 low quality, 3 mid quality, and none high quality. At this moment, Han Fei was still refining. After the materials are melted, I have to immediately connect them to the spirit polishing scripture seamlessly. Not bad, not bad. Okay, when the spiritual energy penetrates smoothly, it means it's done. Blend. Using the spiritual energy as a sieve, he could sift through it to even out the spiritual energy. Good idea. Pincer knife, high-quality magic weapon. Introduction. The pincer of the red-haired big-mouth crab is the main body, with green crystals, dragon-headed fish bones, and devouring horns. Smelted. Remark. The refining technique is standard and the quality is average. I told you there was no problem. But why is the quality average? Isn't this a high-quality magic weapon? Is there still a problem? By the way, my eyes were a bit confused when I saw the spiritual energy just now. Should I clear the spiritual energy first? Forget it. There's still so many materials. Let's do it again. After a long time, more than 90 knives had been thrown under Han Fei's feet. Han Fei looked at the knife in front of him with a weird expression and rubbed his eyes. For some reason, he always felt that his eyes were sore after refining for too long. He seemed to be able to see spiritual energy flowing smoothly in the magic weapon. Was it because his eyes were tired after refining so much? After a while, he rubbed his eyes again. Pincer knife, ultra-quality magic weapon. Introduction. The pincer of the red-haired big-mouth crab is the main body, with green crystals, dragon-headed fish bones, and devouring horns. Smelted. Remark. The refining technique is standard, the materials are just right, and the spiritual energy is smooth. What's the level of refining ultra-quality magic weapons? Have I passed the apprenticeship period? Is it time for me to refine spiritual weapons? Just when Han Fei was about to continue trying, a voice came in from outside. Refining room number 198, your time is up. Do you want to renew the lease? Han Fei was stunned. I'm done. I've just started, okay. Wait, I have to meet Xiao Bai and the others. Forget it. I'll refine at home next time. Looking at the magic weapons on the ground, Han Fei waved his hand and collected them all, thinking to himself, when I return to the Blue Sea town, I'll donate them to the Fish Dragon Central Elementary School. The error-free chapter of Fishing God will continue to be updated on Green Bean. There are no advertisements on this website. Please collect and recommend Green Bean. If you like Fishing God, please collect. Fishing God Green Bean updates the fastest. Chapter 622. After leaving the refining hall, Han Fei felt that he had obtained a new skill. Pretty good mood. Immediately, he took out his waist tag. Hey, is Xiao Bai there? Hey, Kwang, Xia Xiaochan, where are you? Yu, where are you? However, soon after Han Fei called, Luo Xiaobai replied first, wait for me. Half an hour. Lu Renquang asked, I'll be there soon. Where are you? I'm at the gate of the refining hall. Xia Xiaochan still didn't respond, but Zhang Xuanyu immediately replied, wait for me. I'll be there soon. After a while, the three of them met. When Zhang Xuanyu saw Han Fei, he immediately put his arm around Han Fei's shoulder. Fei, let me tell you, I found the Scattered Stars Island really an interesting place. The club is really a good place. Shall I take you there tonight? Han Fei was lost for words. Wait, when did you go there? Zhang Xuanyu replied. I went there last night. I also went to Kwang, but he said that he was busy. Yu Xiaobai and Xia Xiaochan were all not there, so I had to go there by myself. Han Fei was surprised. Huh, I'm here. I've been in the refining hall, but I didn't receive your message. Zhang Xuanyu was lost for words. That's not right. I called you, and I called you 3 times. Han Fei looked back at the refining hall. Was the signal blocked inside? This waist tag didn't seem to be very powerful. The signal range was so short, only 100 kilometers. This thing could easily run out of the signal range. After a while, Luo Xiaobai came late. After seeing Han Fei and the others, she casually greeted them and then said, Xiaochan is quite far from here. It will probably take an hour to get here. Han Fei was puzzled. Have you seen her? Luo Xiaobai nodded. When I was on the south coast, I heard that there was a Dark Hunter Legion there, so I called her once and found that she was really there. Han Fei shrugged. Then let's wait a little longer. When Xia Xiaochan left, Zhang Xuanyu asked, have you gone to the sea? Lu Renquang shook his head. No, I've only been to the Hell Beach once. I fought on the beach for half a day and then came back. Luo Xiaobai said, my time was even shorter than Lu Renquang's. I only went to the Silent Swamp to help him when I was around the island. It took me no more than half an hour. Zhang Xuanyu grinned and said, then I went quite a lot. I've already fought 5 or 6 times, but they were all on different coasts. I found that there were a lot of beaches on the Scattered Stars Island. There were sandy beaches, mudflats, stone beaches, reefs, and cliffs. Also, let me tell you one thing. There were inferior manfish on the Scattered Stars Island. I fought them twice, and they're quite powerful. Han Fei was surprised. You saw the inferior manfish? Zhang Xuanyu nodded. Not just that. I saw a lot of inferior manfish. They are one of the main enemies of the Scattered Stars Island. They sat by a flower pond for a while, and Han Fei heard Xia Xiaochan's voice. Han Fei, are you there? I'm here. Come quickly to the entrance of the refining hall. A moment later, Xia Xiaochan hopped over. Seeing Luo Xiaobai and the others, she exclaimed in surprise, wow, you're all here. Han Fei glanced at Xia Xiaochan. What's wrong with the black clothes you're wearing? They don't look good. Xia Xiaochan glared at Han Fei. This is the uniform of the Dark Hunter Legion. In the guild, we usually wear this. Didn't I forget to change? Han Fei grinned. Come on, let me carry you. Let's see if you're heavy. Clink. Xia Xiaochan stabbed her knife at him. Do you think I'm heavy? Han Fei said solemnly. Absolutely not. Cough, cough. Zhang Xuanyu said. Can you pay attention to your image? Luo Xiaobai was looking at the big sign of the refining hall. Seeing that the two of them stopped, she turned her head. Let's find a quiet place and summarize our information first. Zhang Xuanyu nodded. I know. Let's go to a club. There are exclusive private rooms there. They're soundproof. Han Fei glanced at Zhang Xuanyu and asked, "How do you know about soundproof? What did you do in there?" Zhang Xuanyu was stunned. "I didn't do anything. The reason why a club was called a club was to celebrate the survival of a disaster and to revel in life. The purpose of a club was that they didn't know when they would enter death, but they could live the best life while they were still alive. When everyone entered the carnival shop, a turbid atmosphere hit them in the face. It was like a bar in the middle world. Small tables were filled with people. Some people were drinking, some were bragging, and some were joking. However, the most eye-catching thing was the rather open style of clothes on many girls, including tights and loose gauze robes, which made Zhang Xuanyu's eyes glitter. I can't describe it too much. It's funny. What also surprised everyone was fish dragon cards. Zhang Xuanyu said, "I've already asked about the origin of the fish dragon cards. I don't know who spread them, but they've only become popular on the Scattered Stars Island in the past 2 years." Han Fei was speechless. "Who is so stupid? You plagiarized my idea and didn't even bother to tell me." Zhang Xuanyu said, "Let's not talk about the fish dragon cards for now. They can be bought everywhere on the Scattered Stars Island." Zhang Xuanyu waved his hand gently and said to a 2-star waiter, "Give us a private room. It must be quiet." Seeing the 2-star waiter, Han Fei couldn't help but frown, but he didn't say anything. Soon, they entered an exclusive private room. This private room seemed to be wrapped in a thick fish skin, and there was a soundproof array on the ground. Master Hexagon, who had been hiding on Xia Xiaochan's shoulder, suddenly said, "This soundproof array is not good. It's incomplete and will leak sound." Everyone's expression changed slightly, and Han Fei said, "Then why don't you set one up?" Xia Xiaochan pushed the hexagon starfish off her shoulder and pressed it on Han Fei's shoulder. "Here you go. You ask me for food every day. I'm so annoyed." The hexagon starfish waved his tentacles, and a new soundproof array was set on the soundproof array of the room itself. Luo Xiaobai said, "Set up another concealment array. This place seems to be a mixed bag. We'd better be careful." After a moment, the 5 of them sat in a circle. Luo Xiaobai said, "Let's summarize the information we know." Xia Xiaochan said, "I go out to fight every day and have hunted more than 20 inferior manfish alone. As far as I know, in the entire Scattered Stars Island, note, the entire sea area within 1,000 kilometers, inferior manfish often appear. There are a lot of them, and they're not weak." Han Fei quickly asked, "You've just arrived, and you've already gone to sea?" Xia Xiaochan said, "We are a special Dark Hunter squad, specializing in assassinations." Zhang Xuanyu said, "I've also met inferior manfish several times. However, as far as I know, these inferior manfish are not thousands of kilometers away from the coastline. Sometimes they can even run to the beach, and sometimes they can hide under the cliff. Besides, I heard that some inferior manfish also have the ability to hide themselves and sneak attack human beings." Xia Xiaochan exclaimed, "Then aren't they the same as hunters?" Zhang Xuanyu said, "But I haven't seen this kind of inferior manfish yet." "Maybe," Han Fei said, "I haven't seen it either. However, I've experienced a defensive battle in the past few days. The Tide of Tide calling crabs attacked the skeleton shore, but they failed to attack. The reinforcements came in time." Lu Rinquang said, "I've been sorting out the deployment of materials, the rules for the use of points, and the dispatch of combat readiness these days. I haven't seen anything like inferior manfish. However, let me tell you, you must get more stars as soon as possible. You can get a discount if you exchange points for items." Everybody was immediately refreshed. Han Fei asked, "Discount? How much?" Zhang Xuanyu was surprised. "Really?" Lu Rinquang said, "Of course, but the discount starts from the 5-star rank. You could get a 5% discount. If you have a 6-star rank, you can get a 10% discount. If you perform well on the Scattered Stars Island, you can get some titles and discounts. Also, you can exchange points for spiritual spring, spiritual fruits, combat skills, techniques, weapons, spirit awakening fluid, soul crystals." Lu Rinquang mentioned a lot of things, including spirit awakening fluid, soul crystals, and life stones. First of all, the spirit awakening fluid was more expensive than the one sold by Uncle Faceless, at 5,000 points per caddy. This meant that he needed 50 million points to buy 10,000 caddies. Even if he exchanged it for mid-quality pearls at a 100 exchange rate, it would still cost 5 billion. But in fact, according to Old Buy's exchange rate, it might be worth 5 to 7 billion mid-quality pearls. In other words, after robbing a dragon boat, theoretically, he could only buy 10,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, which showed the importance of spirit awakening fluid. As for soul crystals, they were not cheap either. A level 1 soul crystal cost 3,000 points. As for level 2 soul crystals, the price was 10 times higher. Especially the life stone, it attracted everyone's attention. Lurin Kwong said, "I noticed it because the price was too high. A life stone is as high as 100,000 points. It is said that it can increase one's lifespan. Dangling fissures can increase their lifespan by 10 years, and even hanging fissures and hidden fissures can increase their lifespan by 1 year." About a moment later, everybody finished talking, and Luo Xiaobai said, "Okay, I'll sort out what you've said and fill in the gaps. Listen carefully. The error-free chapter of Fishing God will continue to be updated on Greenbean. There are no advertisements on this website. Please collect and recommend Greenbean. If you like Fishing God, please collect. Fishing God Greenbean updates the fastest." Chapter 623. Among them, Luo Xiaobai was in the Tactical Command Center, so she knew the most information. In the past few days, Luo Xiaobai had learned a lot of basic knowledge about the Scattered Stars Island and the overall strength layout of the Scattered Stars Island. Luo Xiaobai said, "First of all, let's start from the Scattered Stars Island itself. As far as I know, the Scattered Stars Island came first, and then the Thousand Star City and the 36 towns." Huh, it has such a long history, even longer than the Thousand Star City. Luo Xiaobai pretended to be angry. "Don't interrupt me. Let me finish first." Luo Xiaobai continued, "There are not many documents about the relationship between the Scattered Stars Island and the Thousand Star City. However, it is certain that the Scattered Stars Island has existed since the beginning. This means that the Scattered Stars Island is not unique, and it is very likely that there are islands in the sea similar to the Scattered Stars Island in places we don't know. The geographical situation of the Scattered Stars Island can be roughly divided into 4 battle lines: north, south, south, and west. But if we subdivide it, in fact, there are a total of 8 battle lines, which are defended by 8 guard legions. Under each battle line, there are actually advanced scouts, pioneers, Dark Hunter Legion, and the most important guard legion. Originally, there were actually many dangers inside the Scattered Stars Island. However, it seems that there are fewer dangers now, but some places are still uninhabited. For example, the Transverse Mountain, the Twisted Jungle. I don't know much about them. Luo Xiaobai spoke with fervor like a military advisor. During the war, everyone stays at their posts. If it's not during the war, there are actually many things that can be done. For example, the Pioneer Legion and the Dark Hunter Legion, these 2 organizations don't even need to participate in the war. The mission of the Pioneer Legion is to explore the waters around the Scattered Stars Island, mainly to find explorable secret realms. The entry requirements of the Dark Hunter Legion are extremely strict, because they're always on the first battle line, which is highly dangerous, but also highly rewarding. In the Dark Hunter Legion, you may be promoted soon. Han Fei couldn't help but look at Xia Xiaochan. Dangerous? Not bad. It's not a big problem. Then be careful. Let's find a way to break through to a hanging fisher first. Luo Xiaobai nodded. Yes, Xiaochan should become a hanging fisher as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will only be more and more difficult for the Dark Hunter Legion. Luo Xiaobai continued. The purpose of all these battles is actually for one thing: spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei frowned. Is spirit awakening fluid so important? Luo Xiaobai said, "The spirit awakening fluid is more important than we thought. As far as I know, spirit awakening fluid can accelerate the growth of spiritual beasts and contractual spiritual beasts. At the same time, it can also improve a cultivator's cultivation aptitude. The aptitude I'm talking about is the spirit vein." "Zhang Xuanyu exclaimed, No way. It can increase my spirit meridians? Luo Xiaobai nodded. According to the literature, normal people's spiritual heritage is actually incomplete. With the help of spirit awakening fluid, one's spiritual heritage could reach the best state. Of course, it was impossible for it to continue growing without a limit. It seems like I can only excavate the full potential of my spirit meridians before I can no longer improve them. Lu Renquang nodded. That's unbelievable. Master Hexagon Starfish asked, Can I have something to drink? It seems to help Starfish too. Han Fei said angrily, Go away. We don't even have anything to drink. Do you still want to drink? Luo Xiaobai smiled. Senior Hexagon Starfish is really good at drinking. It seems that the spirit awakening fluid is more effective for marine creatures than for human beings. The Hexagon Starfish's 6 big eyes immediately rolled. Look, Starfish can drink. Han Fei said angrily, It's so expensive. You can't even buy a few caddies of it, even if you sell your treasure house. Wait a minute, Luo Xiaobai said, because the spirit awakening fluid is very useful for both human beings and marine creatures. Therefore, there was the battle of the Scattered Stars Island. Humans and sea demons, that is the inferior manfish, red demons, and half-mermaids, were competing for the spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei asked, Half-mermaids? Luo Xiaobai nodded. On the Scattered Stars Island, the real enemy is not the inferior manfish and ordinary marine creatures, but the half-mermaids, who have almost the same talent as us humans. Zhang Xuanyu suddenly asked, Isn't it beautiful? Bam! Han Fei kicked him hard. No one knew what he was thinking all day long. Xia Xiaochan asked, Where did the spirit awakening fluid come from? Luo Xiaobai explained, There are 2 places. One place is the Scattered Stars Island itself, which produces it in a cave on the island. The other place is in the ocean. It is said that in the sea around the Scattered Stars Island, protruding peaks often emerge from the ground. We call them undersea chimneys. Every time an undersea chimney appears, it means the beginning of a war between humans and sea demons. Until now, there have been victories and defeats. Han Fei asked, What does an undersea chimney appear? Luo Xiaobai shook her head. I don't know, and no one knows. Even the sea demons themselves probably don't know. Otherwise, they would have occupied all the undersea chimneys before humans did. Han Fei frowned. Does it mean that once an undersea chimney appears, there will be a war between the 2 armies? Luo Xiaobai nodded. It's not that exaggerated, but I'm afraid it's not simple. Once an undersea chimney appears, human beings will be the weakest party. Usually, only a few experts would participate. Every wave they could snatch was a wave. Otherwise, a huge number of marine creatures and sea demons will directly drown the undersea chimneys. This is also the reason why the creatures around the Scattered Stars Island are so powerful, because many of them have benefited from the spirit awakening fluid. At this point, everyone finally understood. It turned out that the Scattered Stars Island and all the buildings and professions on the island existed because of the spirit awakening fluid. At this moment, Han Fei couldn't help but realize that they still underestimated the use of the spirit awakening fluid. However, it seemed useless to talk about this now because they had very few points now. They did have high-quality pearls, but they wouldn't buy the spirit awakening fluid crazily as soon as they arrived on the Scattered Stars Island. They had to be thoroughly familiar with the Scattered Stars Island first. Then Luo Xiaobai taught them a lot of knowledge. For example, the serious shortage of refiners and alchemists, the significant increase in difficulty of fishing, and the dangerous places around the Scattered Stars Island. Anyway, this exchange lasted from the morning to the afternoon. After everyone left the private room, Zhang Xuanyu said, Fei, let me tell you, there seems to be a lot of kinds of wine here. Some don't even look like wine. Come have a try. There are all kinds of smells here. It's too turbid. Those women's clothes are disgusting. Han Fei glanced around. The atmosphere in the afternoon was much livelier than in the morning. There were indeed many young and beautiful girls here. Besides, on their waist tags, there were 2-star, 3-star, and 4-star ones. Han Fei even saw a woman with a 5-star waist tag. How could Han Fei not know? They were obviously here to have fun. Maybe in their world, they didn't care about life and death, and the affairs between men and women seemed to be normal. Cough, cough. Han Fei criticized seriously. Zhang Xuanyu, I have to criticize you seriously. What kind of scandal is it to spend all day in love? Zhang Xuanyu snorted. None of us have experienced the battle of the Scattered Stars Island. If you had experienced it, do you think you would still be able to say that? Han Fei patted his chest. I can. I'm a gentleman. Han Fei found a small table, sat down, and said to the waiter, serve all the special wines. Also get some snacks. I don't want them if they're not delicious. Everyone sat down, and Zhang Xuanyu said with a smile, on this Scattered Stars Island, we have to do as the Romans do. We can only meet once every 5 days. We can't chat too formally. We have to have some fun. Luo Xiaobai said, I don't like this place very much. Xia Xiaochan added, me neither. Lu Rinquang asked, when will the food be served? After a while, a dozen kinds of colorful wines were served. Han Fei tasted them one by one and said disdainfully, none of them taste good. Suddenly, Luo Xiaobai said, by the way, I forgot one thing. It seems that the people from the Thousand Star City are coming. Everyone was stunned. The Thousand Star City? Luo Xiaobai said some time ago when I arranged the defense, a lot of young people from the Thousand Star City appeared. Calculating the time, it should be within the next few days. Han Fei grinned. So, we are in trouble again? Luo Xiaobai shook her head. Not necessarily. Like us, they would be placed in different places. However, your previous opponents will probably all come, so you have to be careful. Han Fei didn't care about this. After the battle in the level 3 fishery, he was no longer afraid of the children of the big clans. The requirements of the Scattered Stars Island were so strict, so he was not afraid. Han Fei was just wondering if Tango would come. He didn't know how Tango was now after the separation in the level 3 fishery. Just as everyone was talking nonsense, someone at the next table glanced over from time to time, pointed at them, and laughed from time to time. Han Fei and the others had glanced over, only to see a man who looked like a gigolo look back and say to Han Fei, what are you looking at? With that, the man said to Xia Xiaochan and Luo Xiaobai, 2 girls, come to our table. I'll take you to drink hard liquor. Hearing this, Xia Xiaochan was furious and was about to attack. Han Fei stopped her. Don't be impulsive, don't be impulsive. Let me do it. Han Fei got up, walked to the table, and stood in front of the young man. The young man glanced at Han Fei's waist tag and curled his lips. 3-star, advanced dangling fisher. Did you get in through the back door? Trash like you, don't get close to me. Han Fei grinned. Come on, turn your head. The young man asked what? Bam. Suddenly, a big brick was printed on the man's head. The brick broke the man's nose and sent his teeth flying. Han Fei sneered. I don't like you. If you like Fishing God, please collect. Fishing God Green Bean updates the fastest. Chapter 6:24. Han Fei didn't have a good temper. To be precise, among the 5 of them, even Luo Xiaobai didn't have a good temper. Only Lu Rinquang had a relatively good temper. In front of Han Fei, these people were talking about Xia Xiaochan and Luo Xiaobai. How could Han Fei tolerate this? Son of AB Tisich, you're courting death. Puff! Next to him, a burly armorist had just stood up when he felt a chill on his back. In the next second, a dagger stabbed him in the stomach 4 or 5 times in a row. He fell to the ground with a dumbfounded look. The other 2 people's faces changed drastically, and they immediately took out their weapons. However, the 2 of them were still too slow. One person's legs were tied up by vines, and the other was pincered by Xia Xiaochan and Han Fei. He was hit in the head with a brick and stabbed 3 times in the stomach. Han Fei stepped on the young man's face. Come on, try smiling again. In the club, there was silence at first, followed by cheers. Someone shouted, get up, beat them. Someone laughed, stand up if you're a man. Someone was speechless. Are 3-star little guys so arrogant now? Oh, the law enforcement team has nothing to do every day. Today, we can finally give them something to do. The 4 people who were knocked down by Han Fei were now full of spiritual energy, covering their wounds while shouting, asshole, tell me your name and team. I'll beat you up. Bam! Zhang Xuanyu went up and kicked him. Who do you want to beat? The young man under Han Fei's feet had just come back to his senses when dozens of sword chi phantoms rushed at Han Fei. However, Han Fei ignored the sword chi at all, picked up the brick, and smashed it a dozen times. Han Fei grinned and said, "Laugh again? Show me another smile? I'll beat the sh*t out of you." On the side, some people who were watching the show cheered. "Then beat them." Han Fei was speechless. "Do you really want to see that?" Luo Xiaobai said lightly. "Okay, that's enough. If you beat them too hard, the law enforcement team will come." Among the four, the young man who was tied up by Luo Xiaobai covered his stomach and said, "F***CK, are you afraid of the law enforcement team? I'm a member of the law enforcement team. You're not allowed to leave." Zhang Xuanyu suddenly said, "Do you know who I am?" The man grimaced in pain. "I don't care who you are. You dare to beat up a member of my law enforcement group in public? I'll kill you." Bang! Zhang Xuanyu went up and struck the man with his rod, causing him to vomit blood. "It's good that you don't know me. Bye-bye." Then Zhang Xuanyu looked at the others and said, "What are you waiting for? Let's go. I heard that fighting will deduct points." Everyone, the onlookers, Han Fei took Xia Xiaochan and the others and quickly slipped out of the 1912 club. For some reason, he felt like laughing. How long had it been since he had such a strange experience? "Ha ha!" The few of them laughed maniacally. Zhang Xuanyu grinned and said, "Great, there are all kinds of people here. They can't find us anyway. It's fine. Who knows who?" Luo Xiaobai said, "Actually, it's possible. But as far as I know, there are a lot of fights in the carnival. It didn't seem to be a big problem. Even if they found out, they would just have to pay some money." Lu Rinquang asked, "So what are we going to do now?" Luo Xiaobai nodded. "Let's go home. Next, except for meeting every 5 days, we should work hard to cultivate and strive to make a breakthrough as soon as possible. Hanging fishers are the mainstream on the Scattered Stars Island." Zhang Xuanyu curled his lips. "It's a pity that we finally have a day off." Xia Xiaochan added, "Just now, we should have given each of them a drop of Poison King." Everyone's first gathering ended with this comical brawl. Luo Xiaobai and the others went back. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan found a place where there was no one and talked for a while. As for what happened in the carnival, no one took it seriously. In fact, Han Fei and the others were arrogant. And in just a few days, Han Fei and the others all felt the atmosphere on the Scattered Stars Island. Here, fighting was common. Just like the first day Han Fei arrived at the 8th Battalion, a group of people gathered together to fight. In the end, nothing happened at all. During the few days Han Fei was there were fights almost every day. If it weren't for Han Fei's shocking battle performance, someone would have come to trouble him. He had to admit that people who were in love, their IQ would also change, and so would their personalities. Xia Xiaochan was such a fierce girl, but since she fell in love with Han Fei, she didn't even have a fit anymore. In the end, Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan stayed together for a long time before they returned to their camp. Before leaving, he pressed the hexagon starfish on Xia Xiaochan's shoulder. Xia Xiaochan probably needed it more than he did. When they returned to the skeleton shore, it was already dark. However, when Han Fei came to his treehouse, he found that 4 more treehouses had been set up next to his treehouse and on the ground. At this moment, Yuling Yun and the others were sitting on the ground and eating barbecue. Gu Daliang scratched his head. "Wait, why is it not as delicious as the captain's?" Lung Hui nodded. "The ingredients are not right." Wu Xiaoxiao sighed. "Hey, the long-snout silver shark is so delicious. I really want to eat it again. Last time, I felt that my cultivation improved after eating it." Gu Daliang chuckled. "Me too. We're living on the Scattered Stars Island on a knife's edge anyway. Do you really have to treat yourself so badly? Captain, you're really good at living." Yuling Yun curled her lips. "Then train more. Improve your strength, and catch them on your own." As they were chatting, they saw Han Fei descend from the sky. Han Fei was stunned. What are you doing? Why are you all here?" Wu Xiaoxiao immediately jumped to her feet. "Captain, come on. Let's have barbecue." Han Fei shook his head. "No, thanks. I've already had it." As he spoke, Han Fei threw a pile of ultra-quality spiritual weapons to the ground. "Yuling Yun, your sword. Lung Hui, your dagger. Gu Daliang, your shield and big sword. Wu Xiao, your battle suit. Ah! Wu Xiao immediately screamed. I have an ultra-quality battle suit now. Gu Daliang hurried to pick up his shield and sword with a big smile. Lung Hui simply rubbed his palm with the dagger. Blood flowed out, and he immediately refined it. Yuling Yun's eyelids shivered. She asked in shock, "It's done?" Han Fei said with a cunning smile, "You'll have to pay me back from tomorrow. It doesn't matter how much it is. I want to see the credit points in my account every day." Wu Xiao, who was jumping in excitement a moment ago, stiffened. She didn't say until a long time later, "Cough. Okay, no problem, Captain." Han Fei thought for a moment and said, "Right. Let's meet at the camp tomorrow morning." Yuling Yun was confused. "Isn't this the camp? We're all going to move here." Han Fei pointed at the camp far away and said, "Let's meet there. We're from the 8th Battalion anyway. What's wrong if we don't see our comrades every day?" Then, while everybody looked at him in confusion, Han Fei dashed into his treehouse. Han Fei had more important things to do than chatting with Wu Xiao and the others. He had to become a 3-star refiner as soon as possible. By then, he would be able to distribute leaflets and pick up customers with his sole possession skills. Downstairs, Wu Xiao and the others looked at each other in bewilderment. Gu Daliang, on the other hand, touched his big sword and grinned. "Good sword and good shield." Yuling Yun asked, "Don't you feel that the captain is a bit weird?" Wu Xiao nodded. "I think so. He seems to like making money." Lung Hui added, "He seems to be throwing away the ultra-quality spiritual weapons as if they were garbage." Everyone, inside the treehouse, Han Fei didn't intend to hide it. The fact that he was learning to refine would be exposed sooner or later. Why didn't he let other people know that he could refine sooner? After he was adept at refining, he would make the entire 8th Battalion owe him money. It was an uneventful night. The next morning, in the camp of the 8th Battalion, many of the senior investigators on break were having breakfast. Some were training, and some were sparring with each other. 5 squads of the same batch as Han Fei had set off, and the others were about to set off too. Yuling Yun and the others, on the other hand, were standing straight and solemnly in a row. Many people were surprised to see them. If they were going to investigate, then so be it. What were they doing? Han Fei, however, stood before Yuling Yun and the others. "Okay, take out your weapons and prepare to go." "Take out our weapons?" Yuling Yun and the others were all taken aback. What weapon should they take out now? Couldn't they be used at any time if they were kept in their bodies? Han Fei said solemnly, "Today we're going to develop a habit called weapon nurturing. Don't keep your spiritual weapons in your body anymore. Hold them in your hands at all times, like me." Han Fei had a blood-drinking knife on his waist and the water-dividing seal in his hand. Yuling Yun frowned. "Isn't weapon nurturing just enough in your body?" Han Fei shook his head. "All your spiritual weapons have sealed souls. Do you think it's enough to nurture them in your body? You have to cultivate your feelings. Cut the crap and take out your weapons." Yuling Yun and the others immediately took out their weapons. As soon as the ultra-quality spiritual weapons were taken out, everyone was shocked. Someone exclaimed, "They're all ultra-quality spiritual weapons." Someone said in disbelief, "Did the 37th squad make a fortune?" Just now, I seem to see a shadow on Gu Daliang's sword. It seems to be an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with sealed souls. Someone was shocked. The 37th squad is so poor. How come all of them are equipped with ultra-quality spiritual weapons? Someone sighed. "No, we'll have to ask them when they come back." On the fishing boat, Wu Xiao and the others were talking telepathically. Wu Xiao said, "I seriously suspect that the captain intentionally asked us to show our weapons." Just now, the other squads were all stunned. Yuling Yun secretly heaved a sigh. "For some reason, I always feel that something is wrong with the captain." Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 625. 1 month passed. Han Fei was refining. Yuling Yun and the others were already used to it. They didn't know where Han Fei got so many materials, but he had been refining crazily for a month. At this moment, Yuling Yun and the others were secretly chatting with each other. Wu Xiao asked, Isn't the captain too rich? Refining requires not only materials, but also a tremendous amount of spiritual energy. He has been refining for a whole month. Does he still have the money to do so? Gu Daliang nodded. I saw it. Since 7 or 8 days ago, all the weapons he refined are high-quality spiritual weapons. That's too fast. Yu nodded. Maybe it's because other people aren't as rich as him. However, he's refined high-quality spiritual weapons from low-quality spiritual weapons to high-quality spiritual weapons in only 1 month. That's an appalling speed. Lung Hui nodded. Extremely fast. Han Fei had never kept the fact that he was learning refining a secret. Every time he was on vacation, people thought that he went to buy materials and learn refining. In fact, Han Fei bought a lot of shiny things and exchanged them for treasures with the hexagon starfish. At this moment, almost all the not-so-shiny things in the hexagon starfish's treasures that could be used for refining were bought by Han Fei. For that, Han Fei spent a lot of high-quality spiritual stones. After a tremendous amount of materials were piled up 1 month later. At this moment, a handful of materials in Han Fei's hand were flashing and extremely unstable. It was the transition between high-quality spiritual weapons and ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Swish! A blade light pierced through the treehouse and flew into the sky, allowing Yun and the others to appear under Han Fei's treehouse. Lung Hui's pupils constricted. How can an ultra-quality spiritual weapon be so fast? Yun and the others were all lost for words. Is that it? In the distance, many people perceived the blade light and came to see. As early as a month ago, when Yun and the others took out the ultra-quality spiritual weapons, everyone knew that the captain of the 37th Squad had reliable connections and could refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons. At that time, many people came to ask Han Fei to refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons with materials and so on. However, Han Fei refused all of them. At that time, Han Fei said that his seniors didn't have enough time to refine for so many people. However, Han Fei also said that he had made some achievements in refining. As long as he gave it some thought, he might be able to forge a supreme-grade spiritual weapon. Once he was able to forge a supreme-grade spiritual weapon, he would definitely sell it to his colleagues in the 8th Battalion at a discount. However, that was not the case. At this moment, the ultra-quality spiritual weapon was refined, and many people ran over as soon as possible. Someone asked, Yun, has your captain been appointed? Yun, that was an ultra-quality spiritual weapon just now. Am I mistaken? Xiao, we're good friends. Can you tell your captain about this? Daliang, are we brothers close? Can you help me ask your captain to forge a supreme-grade spirit weapon? Brother Lung, forget it. Yun, I'm not bragging. I've always admired your personality. Can you ask your captain to refine a saber for me? Han Fei let out a long breath, with a touch of surprise in his eyes. This surprise was not the surprise of refining a supreme-grade spiritual weapon. In his opinion, this was a matter of course. In just 1 month, he had consumed more than 80 million points of spiritual energy, all the spiritual spring he had, and all the low-quality spiritual stones were consumed by him. In Forge the Universe, not a single hair of the materials below ultra-quality was left. If he still couldn't refine an ultra-quality spiritual weapon, how bad would his aptitude be? What surprised Han Fei was that through refining, he found that his control of spiritual energy was getting better and better. If his control of spiritual energy was 100 points before, now it was probably 150 points. What did it mean to have a stronger control of spiritual energy? About 100 points of spiritual energy, he could exert the combat power of 150 points of spiritual energy, although he was still dozens of points away from becoming a peak-level dangling fisher. In terms of strength, he was much stronger than before. No wonder those refiner star ranks are so high. It turns out that refining has such benefits. Of course, the benefits are great, but during this period, Han Fei consumed a lot of spiritual energy. He probably consumed more than 80 million points of spiritual energy. From a month ago to now, including this ultra-quality spiritual weapon, he had refined a total of 1,509. Who knew how many people would be shocked if this number was made known to them? After all, a trainee refiner could only refine a dozen or so weapons a day. Han Fei, on the other hand, refined more than 50 weapons a day on average with his family background and strong spiritual power. The number was so great that it made one's jaw drop. Besides, Han Fei recently found that the spiritual barrier seemed to be loosening. Suddenly, he heard a lot of people talking out of the treehouse. Han Fei sensed and couldn't help but be surprised. Where did so many people come from? But then his face was full of smiles. Here it comes. Here it comes. It's time for me to make a fortune. Han Fei immediately jumped down from the treehouse. Sorry to disturb you. Just now, I accidentally made a breakthrough in the art of refining, and ultra-quality spiritual weapons are no longer a problem for me. I know you are eager. How can I not hope that everyone in the 8th Battalion has a divine weapon in their hands? Well, I promised you that I would refine weapons for you, and it still counts. Immediately, someone said, Captain Han, I have materials. I want to refine a long spear. Someone hurriedly pushed the man away. Captain Han, I can pay more spiritual energy. I just want a giant shield. Go away. I came here first. F*CK off. When I got here, there was no one. Many captains from other squads also came over to surround them. There was a refiner in the 8th Battalion who could refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons. This showed that he was already at the level of a 2-star refiner. However, a captain was puzzled. Han Fei, what's the success rate of refining ultra-quality spiritual weapons now? Han Fei said lightly, Today I suddenly realized that the success rate of refining ultra-quality spiritual weapons is almost 50%. Wow, a captain's eyes lit up. 50%? Isn't that the level of a 3-star refiner? Yes. Captain Han, are you sure you can refine it? Han Fei said leisurely, although I think the success rate is probably 50%, that's under the condition that I could devote myself to it. Besides, refining ultra-quality spiritual weapons consumes a lot of energy. I can refine up to 5 a day at most. I have to spend the rest of the time on cultivation. Someone's eyes flickered. Captain Han, what's the price for you to refine an ultra-quality spiritual weapon? A 3-star refiner of the refining hall must provide 100 kilograms of spiritual energy and 3 sets of materials to refine a spiritual weapon. What about you, Captain Han? Han Fei raised his eyebrows. So greedy? That's 2F** king profitable. I'm so excited. No, I can't show it. I have to calm down. Cough, cough. Han Fei frowned and scolded him solemnly. You're being too polite. We're colleagues. How can I charge you so much? How about this? I only need 2 sets of materials and 50 kilograms of spiritual energy. This? Really? Captain Han, are you serious? Captain Han, you're so generous. We admire you. Wu Xiao screamed. Captain, are you crazy? If you fail, you'll have to put in the materials yourself. Gu Daliang also said, Captain, why don't we? Yu Lingyun interjected, Captain, isn't this too cheap? Han Fei secretly chuckled. Wu Xiao and the others were the most eye-catching. Cheap. Holy **T. This was simply a matter of making a profit with each round of refining. Cheat my ass. Han Fei glared at them and criticized them solemnly. How can I make money from my colleagues? It's a deal. The squads of the 8th Battalion will help each other. I'll set the price. Right? I have some extra materials with me. Some of my colleagues who don't have the materials and spiritual energy but want an ultra-quality spiritual weapon can also give me points. You don't have to pay me all at once. Just pay me back as much as you have. Hiss. That a good deal? You can buy it on credit? Immediately, someone said solemnly, Captain Han, please forgive me for my criticism of you before. Today I, Wang Liang, would like to apologize to Captain Han. Someone cupped his hands. Captain Han is our role model. If you need anything in the future, feel free to come to us. We won't refuse you. Someone was overjoyed. Captain Han, we can't let you suffer too much. If your success rate of refining ultra-quality spiritual weapons is about 50%, we might as well add some more spiritual energy. Immediately, someone squinted at him. Is there something wrong with your head? He's already asking for such a low price, and you still want to add more spiritual energy? Are you crazy? Is money not money? Suddenly, someone asked, Captain Han, when can you seal souls? Why don't you learn the spirit sealing art too? Han Fei was about to say that, but he was smiling. I've already learned the spirit sealing art, but it's rather difficult. Although I have some foundation, it will take me at least a month to learn it. I'll seal souls for you at a 30% discount. I'm sure you'll be satisfied. Han Fei thought that these poor guys couldn't afford to seal souls, so he asked them to buy weapons with their points first. When they accumulated enough points in the future, he could trick them into sealing souls and make a fortune. Hiss. Captain Han, 30% discount? Shoot, learn the spirit sealing art in a month? Am I too stupid? Isn't it said that refining is as difficult as climbing to the sky? Captain Han, you're awesome. Han Fei quickly interrupted them. Hey, everyone, you're too polite. Han, am a man of my word. Every word I spit is a nail. I'll never change my words. Okay, that's settled. Now, who wants to refine? Me. I came first. Get lost. Yuling Yun and the others looked at each other in bewilderment. For some reason, they felt that something was wrong. In the distance, on a certain tree, Zhong Han, the captain of the 8th Battalion, was looking at them and murmuring interesting. Third chapter. Asking for votes. If I want to add more chapters, I'll do it normally at around 7 or 10 o'clock. Anyway, I should only add 2 chapters today. It seems like I can take a break after tomorrow. All right, these 3 chapters are all 3,000 words. I don't know why, but the more I write, the more words I write. End of this chapter.